Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Logan Bailey.
Welcome to the NWO Sports Podcast, Football Edition, brought to you by our primary sponsor, 3Chord. I'm your host, Logan Bailey, and joined today again on the show is Keith Brown, Tony Fairchild, and AJ Fairchild is back from his chiropractic convention last week. So thanks again for everyone coming on the show.
Hey, very welcome, Logan.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, week 3, guys. Wow, I just can't believe it. Just seems like the other day we did our preseason podcast, and now we're week 3 along the season. So, what are you guys excited for this week?
Moves fast, I tell you. It just seems like the football season. It's 10 weeks long, and it seems like it's nothing. And next thing you know, you're in playoffs. Yeah. Yep. School just started today for Sonora, and they've already played 2 games. Third game's on the horizon. Yeah. So, season's just felt like it was started, and here we are in week 3.
Yes.
That all changed because of the playoff system? Is that why they moved it up a week early?
I think once they added the extra week, the week moved up.
Okay.
Because they went from 8 to 16, so they needed that extra week in there.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah, I was talking to someone too. I can't remember who it was the other day. I was like, man, this season's really moved up a lot because a lot of schools around the area, they've had 2 games already before school even started. So I don't ever remember that happening when I played in school. So let's go ahead. Let's look at how we did for last week's picks. Looking here, so AJ came away as the top dog for last week. AJ ended up going 17-4. So you have any words about winning last week, AJ?
Nope. Even with the last second live picks, I still managed to pull it out. No, I was just kind of surprised how many of the games we all missed. You know, some of the upsets that happened last week, like Wasion, Tenora, that caught all of us off guard for sure. And then the Columbus Grove losing their winning streak, that's kind of caught us off guard there too. So a couple others in there, but, things happen. Those are the 2 that really struck me as like, wow.
Definitely. And Keith still leads the way for the year. So Keith's chugging right along too. So Keith leads first, AJ is second, I'm third, Tony's fourth, and Bryce is in, unfortunately, last place. So we're still competing. Everyone's still pretty close, but I don't know. I think for the most part, our picks are going pretty good each week.
OG let me down again. Gosh darn it.
I don't know. I feel like OG's your team this year, Tony.
Yeah. Well, I also got sidetracked by the hot take last week of Defiance having the best offense in the WBL, and didn't pan out for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even Defiance, they didn't play too bad last week, too, against St. Mary's.
Right.
So, I mean, you take away a couple plays here and there, and, they were competing with St. Mary's. So, well, without further ado, we'll start. We'll go into our Week 1 game recaps. So we'll start with NWO Sports Game of the Week last week. We'll look at Columbus Grove and Liberty Benton. Unfortunately, Columbus Grove ended their 23 regular season game win streak, which they ended up losing to Liberty Benton 24-13. But still a pretty good, decent game by Columbus Grove. Running back Trenton Barraza led the team in 20 carries with 101 rushing yards. Wide receiver Zach Reynolds, also he contributed 3 receptions for 46 receiving yards. So comments on the NWO Sports Game of the Week last week?
Unfortunately, streak's got to come to an end eventually, right? And that's not anything really to hang your head about. I mean, that's 1 touchdown away. Go for 2. You're right back in it and tied. So that's not anything to hold your head in shame about for sure.
Yeah, exactly. 23-game winning streak. Coach Schaefer probably have him back playing very well this week, playing Patrick Henry. So
that was my pick last week. That I was really on the borderline. I liked Liberty Benton when I looked at them, but I went ahead and went with the group and went with Columbus Grove. So Liberty Benton, I was rooting for you, but I picked against you. I'm sorry.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next game. We'll keep things rolling here. I had a request, actually, to bump up a Napoleon game because I had some comments that we should have had the Defiance Napoleon game further up ahead in the recap. So shout out to Ryan Crandall. This one's for you. So we moved up Napoleon to the second game. We're looking at the recap. Looking at that game, Liberty Center ended up being victorious with a 35-21 win over Napoleon. Looking at some top players, Liberty Center running back Matthew Orr, 19 carries, 142 rushing yards, 7.47 yards a carry, 3 rushing touchdowns, 9 tackles on defense. Running back Colton Cruz, 16 carries, 95 rushing yards, 5.94 yards a carry, 2 rushing touchdowns. And then for Liberty Center, a couple defensive linemen, Landon Bockelman, 6 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and defensive lineman Owen Box, 4 tackles, half sack, 1 tackle for loss. And then looking at Napoleon, on the flip side, running back Andrew Williams had a nice game, 12 carries, 63 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 4 receptions, 54 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, 3 total touchdowns. Defensive lineman Caleb Stoner, 7 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. And then quarterback Lucas Gherkin, he actually came in for the backup as a backup quarterback because Napoleon's starting quarterback Blake Wolf was hurt in the second quarter, and Lucas Gherkin replaced him and didn't do too bad. He went 7 of 12, 58% completion percentage, 64 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, but he had 2 interceptions. So comments on the big Henry County rival matchup.
It was 20-14 at the half, so obviously Coach Swery had the Napoleon team ready to go. On the other side, we didn't really see the full offensive attack, I think, of Liberty Center when Sonora was over there. But you look at the stats, that backfield of Matthew Orr and Colton Cruz looks like they're going to be quite the duo to handle the rest of the season. But we didn't really see much of Matthew Orr when we saw him a couple weeks ago on Friday night versus Sonora's. But 142 yards on 19 carries, pretty impressive.
Yeah, I tell you, I was shocked when we saw we just reading off some of the scores there at the game the other night, and Liberty Center was down there for a little bit. I was like, what's going on? Yeah. That was kind of a shocker. But, yeah. I mean, Napoleon comes to play, so you never know what's going to happen from week to week.
Yeah, and I would also like to see what would happen having their quarterback healthy. You know, if you lose your quarterback in the second quarter, that kind of throws the whole offensive rhythm off a little bit. And that's kind of when they slowed down a little bit. 14 points in the first half, 7 in the whole second half, be cool to see how things picked up a little bit for them if they had their starting quarterback healthy.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all your guys' comments, and I think it just goes to show that I really don't think Napoleon's that bad of a team. I think they had a tough break against Defiance, but they have some really good athletes on their team. It's just a matter of putting everything together, and to especially be up on Liberty Center, like you guys said, I mean, that's impressive because we saw Liberty Center play firsthand, and they're a good quality team, especially like Keith mentioned with Orr and Cruz at running back. And again, we had Liberty Center fan tell us that their head coach has, what I believe he said, like 6 running backs they can trust getting first-team carries, which, I mean, that's pretty impressive being a Division V school. So, I think that was a pretty good matchup, and I'm excited to see what the rest of these two teams have the rest of this season.
And Napoleon plays Wauseon this week, so that'll be a very good matchup now.
Yeah, honestly, and we'll get to the picks later, but I was kind of back and forth between that game. I mean, I think it could possibly go either way, but we'll get a little bit more into that for the picks.
Right.
All right, let's move on to the next game. St. Henry Archbold. Another game that shocked us. We all had St. Henry except for Bryce, and the Archbold fans are loving Bryce right now. I was showing all the guys the picture of the Archbold Barstool account put on, and we were all cracking up. So we like it, and it keeps everything fun around here. So,
absolutely.
Looking at some stats, or looking at the score, Archbold was victorious 34-10. St. Henry, they did challenge Archbold to throw the ball in that game, and quarterback Cade Brenner for Archbold stepped up and did an excellent job. Looking at his stats, he was 11 of 16, 69% completion percentage, 221 passing yards, and 3 passing touchdowns. And what I thought was really interesting is St. Henry limited running back Carson Dominic to 2.3 yards a carry. And we said coming into this year, a veteran running back, he could easily be a 2,000-yard rusher. And to hold him just to 39 rushing yards, that's crazy. He did have 2 rushing touchdowns, though, but still, I think a lot of teams are going to try to do that because they know Archbold can run the ball, and they want to see what Cade Brenner can do at quarterback. And then the last top player for Archbold, Lucas Dominic, 2 receptions, 60 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. So what are your guys' thoughts on this game from last week?
Archbold was another one of those. It was kind of a toss-up for me. I liked the way they played week 1 and coming out in week 2, but I just thought St. Henry was going to have a little bit too much for him. But and I thought exactly that they were going to force them. They're going to take away the run game and make them throw the ball. And Brenner did a great job stepping up, throwing 221 yards, and he answered the call. So
yeah, it's really just about whether or not he stepped up, and he did. That's awesome. Seeing Lucas Dominic with 60 yards on 2 receptions, I mean, that's huge. That helps cover up some of the gaps a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how they continue the rest of the season because, the St. Henry coming in thinking, well, if we shut down the run, maybe we have a chance. But now the rest of the teams from the rest of the season are going to be thinking, well, that didn't work, so what do we have to do?
Right.
Yep. Looks like Cade Brenner's stepped into the DJ Newman shoes pretty adequately through the first 2 games.
Yeah, that's something we said too. I mean, we knew Archbold was going to be a quality team with the kids they brought back, but it was going to be a matter of fact if they could develop that passing game, and I think that's coming right along, and that showed this last game against St. Henry.
Yep. Brenner's not quite the dual threat that DJ was, but as far as the arm, I mean, like we said, through the first 2 games.
And you don't necessarily need a dual threat quarterback
absolutely
when you have
not.
a running game like
Correct.
that. So. Let's go ahead. We'll move on to the next game. Delphus Jefferson against Ayersville. Looking at the Ayersville Pilots, they were victorious, 41-21. Ayersville put up 438 yards of offense to Jefferson's 295 yards of offense. So a lot of offense in that game and a lot of scoring. Ayersville also rushed for 401 yards and on 55 carries as a team. Looking at Ayersville, some top players. Quarterback Blake Howenstein, 5 for 7, 71%. 37 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. He had 2 interceptions, but the rushing statistics really stood out. 19 carries, 174 rushing yards, 9.2 yards a carry, 3 rushing touchdowns, 5.5 tackles, and he also had a pick on defense. So very impressive performance by him. Running back Owen Berner came alive as well. 23 rushes, 155 rushing yards, 6.7 yards a carry, 1 rushing touchdown. He also contributed 5 tackles on defense. And linebacker Cade Hannacraft, 4 tackles, 1 sack, tackle for loss. So what are you guys' thoughts on the Pilots' performance from last week?
Well, I tell you what, that's just what I thought they needed to do from week 1. I know we all sat here after week 1 and was like, Hohenstein had 22 carries, I think, and Brenner had 5, if I remember right. It wasn't very many. And so we're like, was that by game plan? But they got the ball into Brenner's hands and, 155 rushing yards and Hohenstein did his job too. And then Ayersville came out on top.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of rooting for Ayersville a little bit this season because they seem like they've got a solid team. I know that Delta game at the beginning of the season was kind of a heartbreaker, but I think they came out this week and we're just like, no, we're not going to let that happen again. So we'll see how they go the rest of the season.
At least for me, it looks like Hohenstein, just like the DJ Newman, is filling the shoes of Jacob Trevino quite adequately. Yeah. I mean, both dual roles for him. So, and good to see that Owen Berner's back on track. 23 rushes, 155 yards. So, Ayersville, I mean, at least personally, very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, Ayersville in particular, I mean, I think they kind of shocked me when they came out and showed some of the potential that they have this year. So, I think the Pilots are on the right track, and good to see Andrew Mickey, head coach at Ayersville, get his first win.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think we're going to see one heck of a GMC conference this year between Antwerp, Ayersville, Edgerton, and if Tenora continues to develop, as long as Wasion wasn't a fluke, if they keep playing the way they're playing, it's going to be a duel the whole way out.
Could be interesting.
I definitely agree. Let's move on to the next game. Looking at Defiance St. Mary's, a WBL matchup. Defiance ended up losing that game 21-6, but they've continued to show improvement this year. Defiance had a field goal blocked in that game, which led to a 95-yard return for a touchdown, and it gave St. Mary's a first score of the game. And Defiance also forced 3 turnovers from St. Mary's, including 2 fumble recoveries and an interception all before halftime. So defense coming out for Defiance. And, I mean, you take away a couple of those plays, and Defiance was in the red zone a couple times even in that game. And, I mean, that's possibly a one-score game for the Bulldogs. So definitely showing improvement with Coach Cooper over there in Defiance. Looking at some top players. Quarterback Brez Zipfel, another nice performance, 20 of 36, 56% completion percentage, 215 passing yards, and 1 passing touchdown. Looking at running back Brogan Castillo, 14 carries, 74 rushing yards, 5.3 yards a carry, 1 receiving touchdown, 1 reception for 76 yards. And then wide receiver Anthony Wilder, 10 receptions, 68 receiving yards. And I think that just showed the Defiance Bulldogs can sling the ball a little bit.
Yeah, it looks like Coach Cooper's, as I've kind of pounded the table the last 2 weeks, definitely has Defiance on the right track for, getting back to the prominence that they were under Coach Beauty. So have a field goal blocked and they return it 95 yards. That could be a kind of a deflator, especially against a team like St. Mary's, but Defiance never gave up. So
I agree with you there, Keith. Getting that field goal blocked and giving them their first score, you're playing well and you get that the block and they score off of it. It's like you said, it kind of like, ugh.
Right.
But, it is what it is. You just got to keep playing.
AJ, you have any comments?
Not really. They got to keep improving. Defiance has been struggling for the last couple of years, so they just got to keep going. And it sounds like you guys have mentioned, they're kind of on that right track a little bit here.
Yep.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next game. We were at this game for Tenora Rams Live last week. Shocked us all, honestly. I mean, I don't think any of us would have thought the game would have turned out how it did. Tenora Wauseon. Tenora ended up being victorious 27 to Wauseon's 14. Looking at some top players for Wauseon, wide receiver Jude Armstrong, 5 receptions, 70 receiving yards. Wide receiver Tyson Rodriguez, 5 receptions, 66 receiving yards, 8.5 tackles on defense, and he had 1 interception. Wide receiver Sam Smith, 4 receptions, 29 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. And defensive lineman Chance Snow, 11 tackles, 1 sack, 1 TFL. And then on the flip side, looking at Tenora, running back Brandon Edwards came alive, 20 carries, 148 rushing yards, 7.4 yards a carry, 1 rushing touchdown. Caden Radzik, 2 interceptions, 1 really big 30-yard interception return for a touchdown that ended up resulting in Tenora's first points of the game, and that really created momentum. And then tight end Grady Gusweiler, 1 reception, 40 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. It was the only reception for Tenora in the game, but it resulted in a long touchdown. So comments on the Tenora game, guys?
I mean, it's one of those games that you sit back and we talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. If we could get pressure, if the team can get pressure on Wauseon's quarterback, there's positive things going to happen. And I tell you what, Tenora came in with a great game plan, was able to put pressure on McLeod and got him moving. And no disrespect to him, but if he's going to listen, but man, he looked really nervous once he got pressured, and he was getting rid of the ball quick and making some very errant throws. But I guess my biggest thing about this game being there was, Sam Smith. It shows that the 5 receptions, 4 receptions to Sam Smith, but it seemed like he wasn't targeted as much as it seemed like they were always going somewhere else with the ball, and that was one thing that kind of confused me. And but Tenora did a great job, came out with a great defensive game plan, and then they got Edwards out in space where we all said he's better out there. So, congrats to Tenora.
Yeah, Brandon Edwards is one of the fastest running backs I've seen in Tenora for many years. So, got to get him on the outside and get him around the defensive ends and those linebackers, because we saw against Liberty Center getting in the middle. He's not as big as some of the other running backs we've had. So running down the middle is just not going to be the most effective thing for him. Getting outside and getting around those guys, it shows 148 rushing yards. It makes a huge difference in a game like this, especially against somebody like Wauseon. It's a big difference.
Yeah, and kudos again to Coach Krause and the staff. Wauseon took the first possession, marched right down the field, scored in the first 2 minutes of the game. So I'm pretty sure at least most of everybody was thinking, here we go. Boys bounced back. That Caden Radzik interception, I think, just turned on the switch. I just see the electricity in the crowd, the sidelines, up in the booth. Everybody was just going crazy. So I think that pick 6 by Caden was definitely the game changer. And the Rams' defensive line, defensive staff, defensive game plan alone was A+. They couldn't have game planned them any better, I don't think.
And that's 2 years back-to-back that we saw Tenora put together very well put together and thought out game plan. And I think it helped too. Coach H, the legend at Tenora, was back on the sidelines, and maybe that gave Tenora a little boost in morale as well.
You said it was the first points of the game. That's first points of the season.
Correct.
That's the first time they had scored, and maybe like Keith said, it flipped the switch. Hey, we can compete. Literally, Tenora looked like a different team from week 1.
Oh, absolutely,
100% different. So, whatever they did in preparation for the game, to need to repeat that 10 more times.
Rams got the lead there. 2 third quarter touchdowns. Brandon Edwards, that 60-yarder, then Grady, that 40-yard slant, only completion of the game, but hey, it counted. Then fourth quarter, I think Wauseon ran 4 plays. It was just old school Tenora football. Get the ball, run it 3-4 yards.
Yeah, it was same thing as last year.
Yep, it followed exactly the same, same script of the fourth quarter from last year. Exactly right, Tony.
Yeah, the time management thing was my biggest concern for Wauseon. Was at the end of the first half, Wauseon got the ball back with just under 2 minutes, I think it was, and I think they had 2 or 3 timeouts. I don't remember exactly,
we had 3.
But and coach never called timeout. He just let the clock run out. And I'm thinking, well, you got this high power offense. I would think you would try to put some points on the board because they were down at the time, 14-7, I think it was. And so I was a little confused by that on the Wauseon side. But again, Sonora did a great job.
Yeah, and last thing I want to say is I just want to give a lot of credit to Coach Krause, and I think he did a really nice job at rallying the troops and coming back after a big loss to Liberty Center. He got all of his players and staff back on the right track, and I think they're heading in the right direction for the season. So.
Most definitely.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next game. Talk about a barn burner. A lot of offense, and we predicted this. I think I said I estimated probably about 600 passing yards. There's 475 passing yards between both teams. So we're looking at Antwerp-Eden. Antwerp was victorious, 54-32. There was also 875 yards of total offense between both teams. And surprising thing was there was some more rushing yards and rushing touchdowns than passing in this game. So looking at Eden, quarterback Kyler Sapp led the way for the Bombers, 18 of 28, 64%. 245 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, and 5 total touchdowns. Looking at wide receiver Carter Keese, 3 receptions, 80 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. Wide receiver Caden Nestor, 6 receptions, 54 receiving yards, and then wide receiver Max Radabaugh, 5 receptions, 47 receiving yards, 70-yard kick return for a touchdown as well. And then looking for the Antwerp Archers, quarterback Carton Aldemus, one heck of a performance, 15 of 26, 58% completion percentage, 230 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. He had 1 interception, 15 carries, 184 rushing yards, 12.3 yards a carry. 5 rushing touchdowns, 6 total touchdowns in the game, which, wow, that's a lot. So looking at running back Reed Leachty, 18 carries, 110 rushing yards, 6.1 yards a carry, 2 rushing touchdowns, and he had 1 reception for 26 receiving yards, so a very nice game from him. Wide receiver Camden Fuller, 3 receptions, 77 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown, and then linebacker Xander Smith, 7 tackles, 1 sack. So what are you guys' thoughts on this game?
I guess my first question is, how long did this game take?
Yeah, no kidding.
But looking at the stats, you feel bad for Coach Olin and Eden. You start out with Edgerton. You're probably playing the top 2 teams in the GMC to start your season. And, Antwerp again, Ultimist, Leachty, Fuller. You don't even see Brewer on here, so that's, one of the 3-headed monsters, like I've been saying.
Another good athlete from Antwerp.
Didn't even show up on the stats, but yeah, Antwerp's just going to be tough to beat. On the flip side, you look at Eden. I mean, they obviously showed up to play. Kyler Sapp, again, looks like he's definitely going to not quite the talent of Gallahue, but definitely going to fill his shoes quite adequately.
He's still just a sophomore,
absolutely.
Too,
so correct.
I mean, who would have thought that you're going to go out there and score 5 total TDs and you'll get outshed by somebody else? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, our Ultimates coming in and throwing, getting 6 total TDs. That's just, that's just mind-boggling in my mind. You run for 200 or 184 yards. Your running back runs for 110 yards. It's just, that's a great game. I mean, just a great game all the way around.
Definitely showcasing 2 of the better quarterbacks in the area as well. So
clearly,
I think that would have been a good game just to see a lot of talent and a lot of offensive firepower. So not much defense in the game.
I was saying it would have been a lot of fun offensively.
I was looking at these stats. I'm like, that's got to be a typo. There's no way you have 875 yards of offense. And I got to look and I'm like, no, it really happened. It did happen.
A lot of offense in that game, but Antwerp ended up victorious. So let's move on to the next game here. Wayne Trace, Patrick Henry, a close one. Patrick Henry ended up winning 12-0, and I think it just goes to show Wayne Trace can compete a little bit this year. I think we talked in the preseason that Wayne Trace has some younger talent. I believe it's that junior class over there. They're doing some good things, and I think the only thing that I would say is just turnovers, I think, are the things that are hurting the Raiders right now. But overall, they're playing pretty well with a big win over Fort Recovery. And on the flip side, Patrick Henry, they've got some talent on offense as well. So let's look at some of the top players for Wayne Trace. Quarterback Kyle Stoller. He was 22 of 31, 71% completion percentage. He had 214 passing yards. Though he had all the passing yards and a good completion percentage, he did throw 4 interceptions. Had 14 carries, 54 rushing yards. Running back Kyle Slade for the Raiders, 22 carries, 85 rushing yards. And wide receiver Tucker Antone, 7 receptions, 60 receiving yards. And then looking at the Patrick Henry, Patriots. Quarterback Nash Meyer, 6 of 15, 40% completion percentage, 96 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 2 interceptions, 22 carries, 60 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Wide receiver Landon Johnson, 2 receptions, 35 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown, and running back Cody McCants, 7 carries, 35 rushing yards. So a lot of turnovers in this game. 5 turnovers for Wayne Trace, 4 turnovers for Patrick Henry, but it just looks like reading the stat line in the box score that it was just a real gritty game. So
yeah, it sounds like definitely a defensive struggle. All 12 points in the second quarter. Lots of turnovers. But again, Coach Inselman over there at Patrick Henry, always going to have a solid program on offense and defense. We'll find out what Patrick Henry has this week. I think they play Columbus Grove.
Yes, they do.
Right?
Yeah,
So,
I think it's at Columbus Grove too. So that's, we know that's a tough place to win at. So
Yeah, and seeing Wayne Trace hold Patrick Henry to 12, I know they didn't score anything, but man, like you said, that's got to be had to have been a grueling game to see Wayne Trace hold Patrick Henry to only 12 points. Patrick Henry's a good team. I mean, they're usually pretty good. So for Wayne Trace to be able to pull that out like that, we'll see how they are in the GMC this year too.
Yeah, and my thing for Wayne Trace, too, I mean, they had 5 turnovers. I mean, though Patrick Henry had 4 turnovers, but, I mean, it was still a ball game between the teams, and Wayne Trace stuck in there, but Patrick Henry ended up victorious. So
yeah, that's what I was going to say. You're Wayne Trace, and you force 4 turnovers, and you lose the turnover battle.
It's frustrating.
It's
Right.
dang. So, that game could have gone either way with 9 turnovers between the two teams. That game could have turned around at any point.
All right, let's move on to the next game. Looking at Hicksville versus Crestview. Crestview was victorious 42-12. Looking at some top players for Hicksville, quarterback Brody Balzer was 10 of 20, 50% completion percentage, 120 passing yards, 11 carries, 26 rushing yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. Wide receiver Brant Langham, 4 receptions, 79 receiving yards, 6 tackles on defense, and linebacker David Taylor, 8 tackles on defense. Looking at Crestview, quarterback Carson Hunter, another nice week from him. 5 of 10, 50% completion percentage, 141 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown. Running back Isaac Klein, 17 carries, 124 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and linebacker Bryson Penix, 7 tackles. So comments on the Hicksville and Crestview game.
Crestview, at least, I said last week, for me as an outsider, is probably one of my favorite teams to watch in the area, see how they're doing. Kind of almost one of those schools you wish was in the GMC. They would be a kind of a good fit, I think, for the GMC.
Yeah.
But they led 22-6 at the half. But yeah, they seem to be one of the more exciting teams in the area that we just don't see or get much coverage of. So. Play Wayne Trace this week too, so
as I say, I
back
think
in GMC.
We'll see a good challenge, and I think Crestview's kind of played some easier teams. They played Parkway, and then they played Hicksville. We know not too good of teams so far this year. So and Wayne Trace has had a couple tough games under their belt with Fort Recovery and who'd they have this week? Patrick Henry. So we'll see how that goes as well. But any other comments on this game?
No, I just said Crestview. It's going to be see how they come out. I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be a team to watch the rest of the year. Playing well right now.
I definitely think they have some talent, though. I mean, looking at Crestview, Carson Hunter, I mean, another performance from quarterback, and even the Isaac Klein at running back, he had a nice performance, averaging 7.3 yards a carry. So definitely have some talent, but I'm excited to see what they do the rest of the year. All right, let's move on to the next game. Evergreen Montpelier. Again, Evergreen's rolling right now. They were victorious 41-7. Looking at some top players from Evergreen, quarterback Hunter Valkulik. Sorry if I butcher the name.
It's actually pronounced Vakulik.
Vakulik, okay. I try to get my pronunciations, everything correctly, so I appreciate any support anyone has. So feel free to correct me.
I learned that this week as well as the Honstein from Ayersville.
He had 111 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 1 interception, 13 carries for 104 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Wide receiver Riley Dunbar had a nice performance, 4 receptions, 86 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. Defensive lineman Grant Richardson, 3.5 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 3.5 tackles for loss. Really good performance on the D-line. Linebacker Camden Schluter, 9 tackles, 3 TFLs. Linebacker Ryder Hudick, 6 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and he also had an interception on defense. And then on the flip side, looking at Montpelier, quarterback Grant Garrell, 15 of 25, 60%, 121 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. and he had 1 interception. Wide receiver Braden Brink, 2 receptions, 35 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. And wide receiver Cameron Smith, 5 receptions, 51 receiving yards, and he also contributed 4.5 tackles on defense. So thoughts on the Vikings and Locomotives game?
Evergreen's just chugging along. They're, Karchner.
No pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. Sorry, Montpelier. No, Karchner's got him going over there, and you guys have been talking about him as a good coach, and obviously he's got things moving. So it'll be interesting to see how they do as they hit the NWOAL schedule.
I mean, looking in the past, if you would have said a couple of years ago, even Evergreen beating Montpelier 41-7, I mean, in years past, that would have been, I feel like, a game that would have been neck and neck coming down to the fourth quarter. But
right.
Like you said, Tony, I think Coach Karchner for Evergreen, he's got him on the right path. And big game this week against Ottawa Hills, too. So, I mean, another good performance by the Vikings. Keith, you got any comments, too?
Just quickly, like Tony said, Coach Karchner, just a little bit of not that the old staff was bad by any means. We're not disrespecting the old staff. No,
not at all.
But the new staff with Coach Karchner just seemed to inject new energy into the Evergreen program. On the flip side, Coach Robinson, just keep grinding. You're heading in the right direction. Unfortunately, you face Edgerton this week, so you could possibly be 0-3, but you have the league coming up. Just keep grinding over there in Montpelier, and Coach Robinson has that program heading in the right direction.
I got to give props to teams like Montpelier that, they seem to be struggling at the beginning of the year here, but they aren't playing super easy early season games. So when they get into the league, they're going to be full steam ahead, getting ready to go into the league, and it's going to be cool to see what they can do there.
Yep. All right, let's go to the next game here. Hilltop versus Edgerton. Edgerton ended up winning the game 59-0. Looking at some top players, again, quarterback Corey Everett. He was our NWO Sports Player of the Week last week. This week, he's 10 of 14, 71% completion percentage, 2 passing touchdowns, 5 carries, 61 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 1 interception on defense. And then looking at running back Quentin Blue, 2 carries, 52 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 5 tackles on defense. And then a top player for Hilltop was quarterback Cameron Schlosser. He had 135 passing yards. So any thoughts on the Edgerton-Hilltop game?
Just got to say, I honestly not surprised to see Edgerton putting up points like this. They're probably one of the better teams in the area, in my opinion. I think it's going to be between Edgerton and Antwerp for the GMC. It's going to be a slugging fest the whole way down the road, and I'm not surprised at all to see Edgerton put up 59 points.
Yeah, not much of a battle from Hilltop. I believe it was 45-0 after the first quarter, so that's unfortunate for Coach Massey and Hilltop.
Yeah, and I think if I remember, who's Hilltop play this week?
Antwerp.
Yeah, so let's say, so that's not going to get any better for them either.
Yes.
I remember seeing that, like, man, Hilltop, we talked about them, the losing streak. I'm like, oh, they going to end this week. I really doubt, unless something, miraculous would happen. But, I just, Edgerton, we got the hot take last week was Edgerton was overrated. Here they are, 59-0. I don't think we have them overrated at this point.
Yeah. And they're playing real consistent right now. I mean, the same players are coming out. We've seen 2 weeks in a row that they're coming out and they're performing, and Everett's is still doing Everett's things over there in Edgerton. So
now, things change. Injuries change things. AJ mentioned that the first week, I think it was. Injuries can change things in a hurry. So as long if Edgerton stays healthy, and they're gonna be tough to beat.
Yep,
I totally agree. Let's move on to the next game here. Van Wert versus Salina. Van Wert ended up coming away winners 43-7. And again, Van Wert's doing Van Wert things, and they're just chugging along. Van Wert, some top players, quarterback Aiden Pratt, 26 of 35, 75% completion percentage, 299 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, but he did have 1 interception. Again, running back Brylan Parker, 11 carries, 52 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. And again, his 3rd special team touchdown of the year, 166-yard punt return for a touchdown. And wide receiver Maddox Crutchfield, 9 receptions, 135 receiving yards with 2 receiving touchdowns. So any comments on the Van Wert-Salina game?
I'll make one real quick. Don't kick the ball to Brylan Parker.
Yeah.
Obviously, that guy's he's either shifty or just super. I don't know, but that's, like you said, this is his 3rd one this year. So I think I punt away from him or kick the ball away from him as much as I can. But Aiden Pratt, again, another impressive performance. And he was real good last week, was one of my top picks for Player of the Week, and threw up really impressive numbers again this week.
At least for me, anytime you can get a special teams touchdown on the board, that's a plus. And you got 3 of them already through 2 games, so it's very impressive win by Van Wert.
Yeah, I mean, again, another one of those games. Van Wert's a solid team. They're going to continue to win like this up until they get into the league when they start playing some other tough competition. But Van Wert's going to kind of roll for the next week or so here.
Yep.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's go to the next game here. Ottawa Glandorf versus Wapakoneta. Wapakoneta were winners 14-7. Looking at some top players for Ottawa Glandorf. Quarterback Landon Mormon, 12 of 26, 46% completion percentage, 157 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 10 carries for 40 rushing yards. Wide receiver Carter Dooling, 3 receptions, 58 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown, and he also had an interception on defense. And then linebacker Cy Rump, 6.5 tackles on defense, and he also led the team. Thoughts on the Ottawa Glandorf and Wapakoneta game?
Ottawa Glandorf let me down. I'm trying to hang in there and pick you guys, and I was talking to some people at work, and they always talk about the PCBs, the Putnam County boys. Trying to hang in there, but OG just they lost a lot last year. We've talked about that several times, and it's just they're trying to rebuild and regroup, and it's going to take a little bit of time to get everything rolling here for them.
Yeah, not a bad for performance, though. I mean, only losing by 7 points to a good Wapakoneta team, so they hung around. And again, we talked about how they lost a lot in that senior class last year, and also without Colin White. And I know we keep mentioning it, but he's one heck of an athlete.
Yes, that's a huge loss.
Yeah. Keith, you got any comments on this game?
Coach Reiner, just kind of throw your hands up in the air. Hey, we're doing the best we can. Doesn't get any easier this week. They play Elida, so just one of those years. You just darned if you do, darned if you don't. I think for OG.
AJ, you got any comments?
Oh, no, I don't have anything else to add, really.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next game. Delta versus Warren JFK. Warren JFK were winners, 37-12. Looking at some statistics here, Warren JFK outgained Delta 320 yards of offense to Delta's 106 yards. And looking at some top players for Delta, only had kind of one that stood out a little bit, Jeremiah Wolford, 58 rushing yards. So thoughts on the Warren JFK and Delta game?
No, I don't know. I mean, Warren JFK, you guys said came clear from the east side of the state.
Yeah,
so
long drive. Really
pretty good haul to play. And I was told a couple different stories. They only brought so many kids with them. They didn't bring a bunch. So, I don't know how all that worked out. But, obviously they're a pretty good ball club. Pretty much shut Delta down, it sounds like.
Yeah, and Warren JFK, they were state semifinalist team last year as well. Definitely a quality team. And this is looking at last year, even though it's a new year, but they still had, I believe, 11 wins last year. Mm-hmm. But Delta still kind of hung around. I would have thought that the score would have been a little bit more for JFK, but I think Delta showed even they have some grit. Looking back at the week 1 game against Ayersville, they came back and they won in the final minutes of the game.
Yeah, even this game it was 16-0 a half, which is not out of the reach
by
any means. So Coach Ruppel, 1-1 now, traveled to Paulding, I believe. So they got a chance to go 2-1 in non-conference. For Delta, if you're 2-1 heading into the league, you're probably pretty happy.
Yeah, and I think nowadays when you can have 16 teams per region making playoffs, if you can come out of your non-conference with at least most teams play 3 non-conference games, 2 non-conference games, but you can come out of there with a winning record. I mean, that only helps your chances of making the playoffs too. All right, let's move on to the next game. Maumee versus Bryan. Bryan got their first win of the season. They beat Maumee 48-20. Looking at some top players for Bryan, quarterback and free safety Jace Kepler, 12 of 20, 60% completion percentage, 201 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 14 carries, 87 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 1 interception on defense, and 3 pass breakups. So very nice performance on both sides of the ball from Jace Kepler. Running back and linebacker Aiden Pels, one heck of a performance, 14 carries, 147 rushing yards. He was averaging 10.5 yards a carry, 4 rushing touchdowns, 13 tackles on defense, 1 TFL, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. So, I mean, Aiden Pels was doing it all. And wide receiver Maddox Langendorfer, 3 receptions, 69 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. So, thoughts on the Golden Bears?
Yeah, after the first week, like we said, Coach Redhead definitely going to have the boys ready to play, and it sure looks like they did.
They played well.
Yep, very well.
I mean, I think coming off a tough loss to Van Wert, and Van Wert's probably the best team Bryan will play this year.
Yeah,
I think they really came out and showcased some of their talent this game, which was nice to see. And I think Bryan can possibly upset some teams in the NWOAL. I think they're kind of a sleeper in that league. So.
Yeah, definitely definitely a good running game. So
yeah, I mean that's NWOAL is it's got to be probably one of the toughest conferences this year for sure. Yep. So yeah, you never know what's going to happen because, like I said, I think I said it in our preseason thing. They're going to beat each other up. So whoever kind of floats to the top of that thing, I think, is going to be interesting.
All right, let's move on to the next game. Moving right along, Paulding versus Spencerville. Spencerville was victorious, 37-13. The surprising thing was Paulding had a 13-0 lead going into half, and Spencerville came back to put up 37 in the second half, which, again, it's showing Paulding's just right there on the edge. And we saw last week still hung up some points late in the fourth quarter, but I think Paulding – honestly, going into conference play here soon, Paulding's a team you got to. I don't think there's a team in the GMC that is safe. I mean, I think some of the teams like Paulding could upset some teams.
Yep,
so,
absolutely.
Looking at top players for Paulding, running back Dawson Lamb, 1 rushing touchdown. Quarterback Jacob Fife, he had a passing touchdown, and wide receiver Braden Sanders had a receiving touchdown. So, thoughts on the Paulding Panthers in this game?
I was kind of thinking the same thing you are about that Logan thing. Paulding kind of reminds me of like a Purdue University from a couple of years ago when they upset Ohio State out of nowhere. It's like they could do some damage in the GMC this year if they keep developing the speed they're going right now.
Yeah, you don't ever want to overlook opponents because that's as soon as you overlook that opponent, that's when you get smacked in the mouth, and and then you end up with that loss, and it could take you right out of the conference title. So, yeah, I mean Paulding's very well. They're right there. That as they develop, we talked about the whole coaching turnover thing, and as they move through the season, I think they're only going to get better.
Yep. And when we gave the scores at halftime, Paulding was up 13-0. You're kind of like, yeah, good job. Yeah. Then give the post-game scores, and you find out they lost 37-13. You're like, oh, wow.
What happened?
Second half adjustments.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but like I said, if you're a Green Meadows Conference team, you definitely can't let your guard down because as soon as you do, Paulding's right there. I mean, they're biting at right on the rear end of everyone in the GMC, especially with everything they had going on over there. So keep your eye out for the Paulding Panthers. Let's move on to the next game. Swanton versus Ottawa Hills. Ottawa Hills ended up winning 24-14. Looking at some top players, Swanton had running back A.J. George, had 139 rushing yards. Quarterback Ethan Hensley had 2 passing touchdowns, but Swanton showed some compete during the game and also scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. And I was kind of shocked too after seeing kind of a rough performance from the week before from Swanton. They came out and gave it to Ottawa Hills, and they played till the final whistle. So thoughts on the Swanton Ottawa Hills game?
Not really much for me. I'm just honestly kind of surprised at the score. But as we discussed earlier, Swanton just kind of an uphill battle. I guess we discussed a couple weeks ago, but Swanton just seems to be an uphill battle for them each year. So to be competitive against Ottawa Hills, I guess that's a plus. And Ottawa Hills on the flip side play Evergreen this week, so that seems like a really good matchup.
Yeah, I think so too. They play on Thursday night.
Because,
do they?
Yes. The ref shortage again?
There's a shortage of refs right now, so their game actually got bumped from Friday to Thursday, so they're playing Thursday night of this week. So, and I think that's a common theme that you'll be seeing around the area, and there's been a lot of talk about how they just can't get enough refs right now. So
that's unfortunate.
Between the player, the numbers that some of these teams have, or the refs, it's like, what's going on around the area?
Yeah, I can't remember, too, speaking of the refs, that someone was telling me that some schools were going to start offering like a ref course that you could take, and you could even get in high school or something like that. I can't remember who was telling me that, but essentially like trying to get more refs for the area. So
yeah, I tell you what, I'm part of the, being a high school softball coach, I'm part of the NFHS, and I was telling Keith back during broadcast before that every other day I'm getting emails that are asking for referees in all sports. And, when it comes down to, I think maybe, and you look at the referees and they pay the referees, quite a bit of money when you think about it. But when you think about it, I know they you have a referee from Defiance that might travel all the way to Kenton to do a game. Yeah. When you look at gas prices,
right.
Is it really worth my drive all the way to Kenton to do a game? When I, so that it comes down to money, and I hate to say that, but it really does, and it's a lot of time and that's involved in that when you travel to an hour to play, to referee a game.
I definitely think too, referees in the area are definitely underappreciated. I think a lot of times people are always critics of them, but I mean, I always think if I was in that position, I mean, man, that'd be tough. I mean, you make one bad call and people are breathing down your neck. So I mean, definitely not a very rewarding, occupation, but.
I mean, if I was going to referee something, it would be football, because I wouldn't. You might hear some boos from the stands, but basketball, I don't think you could pay me enough money to do basketball, because I've always joked around. In basketball games, you're making 50% of the people mad and 50% of the people happy. Like every call, every time you blow the whistle.
Yep.
So I don't know that I would do a basketball game, but for football, who knows? But I enjoy watching football too much to be reffing it on Friday night.
Right. Exactly.
Sorry, kind of got off tangent there.
No, I think that's a good topic to touch on, though.
Yep.
Let's move on. We'll move to the next game, North Central versus Parkway. Parkway ended up winning 49-12. Kind of surprised me. I thought the Pioneers would hold in there. I was really jumping on the Pioneer bandwagon, but had a couple top players for North Central. Running back Quinn Burt, 5 carries, 99 rushing yards, averaged 19.8 yards a carry with 1 rushing touchdown, and running back Cameron Laney, 80-yard rushing touchdown. And just goes to show North Central, they're all about running the ball up there, and Pioneer. So thoughts on the North Central Parkway game?
I think we're all kind of pulling for North Central, but at least for me personally, even though Parkway's had some down years and whatnot, they're still playing a really good conference. And for an upstart program like North Central to come in to play Parkway, still looking at a program that's established and has been through the battles against all those MAC teams down there.
Right.
But I mean, it was a good story to see North Central travel well down there from what I heard. So just keep it up, Coach Scott Thompson and all the North Central fans. Just support the team. And
I mean, that had to be well over an hour drive.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, from North Central, from Pioneer all the way down there.
Yep.
But I remember when Sonora played Parkway, and that it was like you said, playing in that MAC conference. Yep. Their record never really shows it, but
right.
Yeah, I think even like you guys, I exactly agree, but Parkway, I feel like, is always kind of underlooked and undervalued as a team. But when you play in the MAC, I mean, it's almost expected. I mean, you can only have so many teams at the top and so many teams at the bottom. And Parkway just happens to fall at the bottom, but that doesn't mean they're a bad team. So,
But like you said, I'm pulling for North Central, a startup program. I hope they do well. Keep playing well at least, and so they can keep the program going.
Yep.
You don't want to lose that interest.
I agree 100%. All right, let's move on to the next game. Looking at Fairview Lipsick. Lipsick came away with a win in that game, 48-6, and Lipsick took it away early, 42 points in the first half. Looking at some top players for Fairview. Quarterback William Zedike, 7 of 11, 64% completion percentage, 57 passing yards and 1 passing touchdown, and wide receiver for the Apaches, Brevin Williams, had 1 receiving touchdown. Looking at Lipsick, running back Hayden Heigl, 11 carries, 107 rushing yards, 9.72 yards a carry, and 3 rushing touchdowns. Quarterback Quinn Schroeder, 10 of 11, 91% completion percentage, 160 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 2 carries for 89 rushing yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. And both player stats were all in the first half. So comments on the Fairview and Lipsick game.
Yeah, Coach Kirkendall and Lipsick, they were just looked like they came in ready to roll, 42-0 at half. 28 second quarter points. Coach McCord just have to keep grinding. I mean, that's really all that I have to say about that.
Yeah, and I think, too, 50% of the teams win on Friday nights, 50% of the teams lose. So,
right.
If you're on that losing side, all you can do is keep chugging away each week. You can only go up for a lot of the teams.
Yep.
If you're 0-2 going into week 3, you can only go up if your winning percentage can only increase. So for all those coaches out there, all you do, keep on coaching, keep hyping those kids up, and your win will come.
Go ahead, AJ. Sorry.
I just had a question. I was just curious. This game caught me at the last second when I was looking over this before I came over here. Was Fairview only threw the ball 11 times.
Exactly what I was going to say.
For 57 passing yards. I'm like, are they running the spread still? Like,
we talked before the season that I think Coach McCord was going to run more of a pro-style offense over there.
I was like, that doesn't sound like Fairview only attempt. It's whether he completed passes or not, they only attempted 11. That's very different from what I'm used to seeing Fairview.
I don't know that Fairview's actually had a true spread offense since Bob Olwin's probably been there. I don't think ever since then I think they've kind of toyed around with some different offenses, but nothing like a Bob Olwin offense.
Coach Polder was the same, but
yeah,
I mean he worked the run in.
Yeah, he did.
But there's.
Yeah, he wasn't quite like the rat.
No,
I'm going to stand back there for 2.5 minutes and let him rush until I find somebody to throw the ball. Yes.
All right, let's move on to the next game. Northern 8 conference game. North Adams Jerome looking at Stryker and Holgate for a couple teams coming up. Stryker was victorious against North Adams for Jerome, 46-0. Looking at some top players for Stryker, running back and linebacker Levi Barnum, 18 carries, 320 rushing yards, 17.8 yards a carry, 3 rushing touchdowns, 5.5 tackles on defense. And I don't care if you're 8-man or 11-man. 320 rushing yards is 320 rushing yards. Absolutely. So that was pretty impressive. Quarterback and free safety Jacob Caldwell, 8 of 12, 67% completion percentage, 77 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 9 carries, 43 rushing yards, 9 rushing TDs, and he had an interception on defense. And then wide receiver Mateo Villanueva, 2 receptions, 45 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. So thoughts on the Stryker Panthers?
You said it all. 320 yards by Levi Barnum is 300. That's 300 yards. Passing or it's running is impressive, but when you're rushing for 17.8 yards a carry, that's pretty impressive. And congrats to Stryker on that win.
Yeah, obviously he can move. He's not rushing for 320 rushing yards if he's not able to get around people and make some moves. So I would love to see what somebody like him could do in 11-man football. Is he able to find the holes, things like that? Because it'd be interesting to see. But congratulations to Stryker on that huge win.
For me, like you guys all said, no matter who you're playing against, that's impressive as heck. For me personally, it'd be more interesting to see if there's any more Saturday games for Stryker. With 8-man getting more and more notoriety, it seems, here in the last few weeks from around at least our area, Northwest Ohio, just to go over there and check out a game to see how different it is compared to 11-man football would be kind of my interest. But
yeah, definitely. I think that'd be something maybe we could go on a Saturday and watch either a Holgate or Stryker game and
just check it out and see what.
Yeah, our 7th grade team is going to play Holgate in an 8-man contest, and we're still trying to figure out how it actually works.
Right, awesome.
Yeah.
Good like, what do we do? Who doesn't go in? Who doesn't play? So I think they're just going to kind of wing it and then play it.
Oh, there's got to be a little bit different of a strategy too. I mean, you're missing like 3 players. So
I think you play with both guards in the center. You lose both tackles and the tight end, or I don't remember now. But anyways, so they said something about I think a guard can go out for a pass if he's not covered or something. I mean, it's really crazy. So I don't know exactly sure how it works, but like he said, it would be interesting to go watch it.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Seems exciting. I mean,
maybe I'll go do some recruiting.
That too. All right, last game here. Looking at Holgate versus Fort Wayne Crusaders. The Fort Wayne Crusaders were victorious, 42-20. Looking at some top players for Holgate, quarterback Xavier McCord, 17 of 25, 68% completion percentage, 280 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Wide receiver Zeke Belmares, 10 receptions, 157 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown, and wide receiver / linebacker Dylan Bacher, 5 receptions, 110 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. He also had 7 tackles and 3 TFLs on defense. So any comments on the Holgate and Fort Wayne game?
No, for me, just the same as previously. Just I think the more we know about 8-man, the better off we'll be. Not just us as a group here, but everybody in the area with the dwindling numbers at some of the schools, possibly switch over to 8-man in the next few years. Just be exciting to learn actually the ins and outs of how it's played.
And I think, too, it was nice to see. I believe 103.1 was broadcasting Holgate's game as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, I saw a picture, and I think I saw their banner in the background. So I didn't get a chance to catch it, but that's cool that they're getting coverage. And
I think Lynn and his crew went over to the Stryker game and did a little bit of coverage on that, too. So it's nice. So. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's something, too. We talked about the numbers issue in Northwest Ohio and the state, and I saw recently there was a game, Van Loo. They're still playing 11-man, but their numbers have always been so low, and they've actually played the whole second half of the game with 10 players because they didn't have enough to field 11.
Yep.
And so, I mean, that just goes to show. I think the tough thing keeping teams from going to 8-man is, again, I mean, there's not as much coverage.
Right.
I mean, people don't know much about it. I think, like you said, Keith, I think the more people can be informed on 8-man, and the more I think if OHSAA steps in a little bit more and kind of pushes and markets that, I think that'll become a better option.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of more teams will jump on board, especially too if there's like a playoff system. I believe the Northern 8 is having a conference tournament at the end of the year, but I think if the OHSAA can step in a little bit more and make a push, I think you'll see a lot more teams jump on board.
Yeah, they'd have to regulate it. I mean, you can't have, say, 29, 30 kids on your roster and play 8-man, I guess, or something along that. But yeah, they need some sort of regulation here in the next couple of years, just to step in for the teams that aren't fortunate enough to, play 11-man football. There still has to be an end goal for these kids to go out and practice 5 days a week or 4 days a week, and they play on Friday or Saturday. So, playing's fun. You still would like to have, like, hey, what exactly am I playing for in the end?
I mean, when I look at 8-man, sometimes I think it's kind of like backyard football.
Yeah, right.
You get, similar to 7-man. We do scrimmages during the summers. Yeah, 7-man scrimmages, and basically you just play with a center. That's a 7-man, and so to me, it's I always think to myself when I hear the 8-man, and I know it's way more than this, and I'm not disrespecting those guys, but I always think to myself, okay, you're going here and I'm going here. You're just kind of drawing plays with your chest as you get ready to go. So, and I know it's way more than that, and I'm really getting, like Keith said, I really want to go see a game and see how it's played, because I always enjoyed going to the 7-on-7 scrimmages during the summer.
They're fun. They're fun to watch. Really, those scrimmages are.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Keith, I really liked your comment too. Like, I mean, you said it. You go out, you practice 4 or 5 days a week, whatever.
Yep.
Like, football is the only sport where you're practicing more than you're literally practicing all the time to play one game on one night of the week. Where other games you're playing, looking at baseball, basketball, softball, whatever. You're going out, you're playing 3-5 games a week, whatever like that. So I think if there can be something at the end of the year that can motivate these kids and explain to them why we're playing, so we're playing for a championship or something like that, I think that will be good for the sport too.
Yep.
All right. That concludes our game recap, so we're going to go ahead and take a break to hear from our sponsors, so we'll be right back. 3Chord is a family-owned and operated business who offers the highest quality embroidery, screen printing, sign and promotional items to customers in Northwest Ohio at competitive prices. Locations in Archbold, Napoleon, and Bowling Green. Check them out at 3chord.com. That's THREECORD.com. For any of your auto body or collision needs, be sure to check out Bat & Stevens Body Shop, voted the #1 body shop in Northwest Ohio by Crescent News readers. Give them a call today at 419-497-3111 to schedule your free estimate. Check out Tenora Rams Live. Live events broadcast on YouTube and post-game results, articles, schedules, and more can all be found on tenorarams.com. Feel free to look up their Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram pages as well. Jimenez Basketball Academy strives to create an atmosphere to cultivate basketball fundamentals in Northwest Ohio youth athletes, offering one-on-one sessions, group sessions, speed and agility training, and much more. Located in Pettisville, Ohio, call Coach Jesse today at 419-551-8105. Back on the NWO Sports Podcast, Logan Bailey here with Keith Brown, Tony, and AJ Fairchild. Going into Player of the Week from Week 2. So quite a few, another week of good performances by many athletes. We'll go ahead, we'll read the list, and we'll kind of discuss on who we're looking at for earning the Player of the Week honors. Quarterback Carson Altimus, Antwerp. Archbold quarterback Cade Brenner. Quarterback Kyler Sapp, Eden. Ayersville quarterback Blake Howenstein. Crestview running back Isaac Klein. Running back from Liberty Center Matthew Orr. Edgerton quarterback Corey Everett. Sonora defensive back Caden Radzik. Patrick Henry quarterback Nashmeyer. Van Wert, running back Brylan Parker. Van Wert, wide receiver Maddox Crutchfield. Brian, quarterback and free safety Jace Kepler. Brian, running back, linebacker Aiden Pells. Lipsick, running back Hayden Heigl. Lipsick, quarterback Quinn Schroeder. And striker, running back, linebacker Levi Barnum. So what are your guys' thoughts for Player of the Week? Who really stuck out to you guys?
There's actually kind of two of them that stuck out to me a little bit. Carson Altimus, I talked about him during the season preview, that he was going to be one to watch, and he is not disappointing at all. He's continuing to show what he's capable of, so he's kind of my front runner. Cade Brenner is kind of right up there with him, though. It's another quarterback over there from Archbold. He's doing pretty well. Completion percentage is up there, passing yards is up there. He's just not quite, running the ball quite as much necessarily. So those two are both kind of my top two picks there.
Keith, go ahead.
Same with me. Basically, just carbon copy off AJ. Yeah, Carson Ultimus, very impressive outing against Eden. Again, going back to the striker kid, Levi Barnum. I mean, 322 yards is 320, or 320 yards is 320 yards.
Yeah.
I don't care what's going on. So,
Yeah.
Matthew Orr, good to see him get back on track to LC. And again, shout out to on the defensive side, Caden Radzik basically, I think, changed the game for Schnorr and Wasion. So, but that's my bullet points.
Tony?
I'm the same thing with Carson Ultimus. 414 total yards, 6 TDs, 6 total TDs. Kyler Sapp, he had 5 total TDs from Eden. I mean, that game was a barn burner, like Logan said. Blake Honstein, 211 total yards, 4 total TDs. We kind of talked about this a little bit. You had Corey Everts had 4 total TDs. Brylan Parker from Van Wert had 3 total TDs. Aiden Pells from Bryan, 4 rushing TDs, 13 tackles in defense, 147 yards, with 14 carries, playing both ways, obviously, because he had 13 tackles in defense. That's a tough task to play both ways. So I'm just kind of rambled through those, but some of the guys just stand out, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I'm the same with you guys. I agree, and it's hard to pick. There's so many good athletes. Personally, for me, again, Carson Ultimus stood out. Brian, running back, linebacker, Aiden Pells, again, another quality week from him. And like Keith said, striker, running back, linebacker, Levi Barnum. I mean, when you're averaging 17.8 yards a carry, I mean, that's still pretty impressive. But overall, we had to pick one. And this week for Player of the Week, the NWO Sports Player of the Week for Week 2 is quarterback Carson Ultimus from Antwerp. Again, another impressive performance, and week in, week out, he continues to deliver. And 414 total yards of offense and 6 total touchdowns. That's going to get you Player of the Week for NWO Sports. And the NWO Sports Player of the Week will receive a plaque sponsored by Batt & Stevens Body Shop at the end of the year. So, again, congratulations to Carson Ultimus. Great week.
Much deserving for Carson.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's move on to the power rankings for Week 3. Looking at the power rankings, a little bit of a shake-up here. So I'll go ahead and I'll read off some sections, and you guys can tell me what you think about the power rankings. So let's start with number 27, Hilltop. Number 26, Hicksville. Number 25, Swanton. Number 24, Fairview. Number 23, Montpelier. Number 22, North Central. Number 21, Paulding. And number 20, Ayersville. So thoughts on this group?
Go ahead.
I would say, at least for me, probably Ayersville and Paulding have the best chance of moving up into the next tier coming into the upcoming week. The other ones, Hilltop, Hicksville, Swanton, Fairview, Montpelier. Non-league schedules for some of these teams are just brutal, so your league schedule's kicking in soon, so there should be at least a little bit of breather coming for those bottom-tier teams. But Ayersville and Paulding possibly moving up here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, the next one above Ayersville there is Delta. I would like to see them play again later in the season just to see how things change between Ayersville and Delta. I think that game was, it's hard to say how that outcome would go if, one little thing would go different either way. What would happen with that? And that's really the only thing setting these two teams apart between the top 20. So,
I look at those teams and honestly, I'm kind of starting to look at, do we have, because people brought up the whole Edgerton, do we have Edgerton overrated, so, so I start looking at some of these teams and honestly, the way Ayersville's played the first couple of weeks, maybe they should be a little higher on there. I mean, they lost to Deldo on a fluke. I mean, really,
Yep.
Evergreen at 2. And I mean, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but, I guess I'll stop, but Ayersville, I think maybe should be up a little bit higher there. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, and Ayersville put up a pretty good performance against Delphus Jefferson, and we know that they get a little bit of firepower on that offense. So let's move on to the next section. Number 19, Delta. Number 18, Evergreen. Number 17, Eden. Number 16, Bryan. And number 15, Napoleon. Thoughts on that group?
Oh, sorry, I mentioned Evergreen. I think Evergreen, playing very well. Again, they'll have a tough competition this week. They play Ottawa Hills, and so we'll see what they do this week. But that's another one I think should maybe be bumping up there, maybe ahead of a Napoleon, definitely ahead of Eden. It's 0-2. Those 0-2 teams are, I think, going to start dropping out here and taking care of themselves. But Bryan, very impressive win, so they're in good shape.
Yeah, for me, Delta, like I said, I guess Delton Paulding play this week, so one of those teams obviously will move up a little bit. Evergreen, big week for them. It's just odd. You see Eden 0-2. I mean, are they an 0-2 team? Probably not, but obviously the teams they played, just again rough early schedule. So
right.
Coach Olin, yeah, he won't be there very long. Eden will be moving up probably halfway through the season.
Yeah, I think me personally, looking at Napoleon, I think they're one. They have the talent. It's just piecing it all together. We saw them; they were actually winning against Liberty Center for a little bit. So I think if they can kind of figure things out there, they have the talent. I think they could possibly move up too. So let's look at the next section. Number 14, Wayne Trace. Number 13, Defiance. Number 12, Crestview. Number 11, Tenora. Number 10, Edgerton. Thoughts on that section?
I gotta say, I'm not sure that Defiance is gonna be hanging in there, up there like that. They had a good win against Defiance had a good win against Napoleon, but I'm just not sure that they're gonna hold that spot for much longer.
Tony, Keith?
Moving Sonora up, 5 spots back up to into 11 there. I think the true test will come this week, whether Sonora can keep that rolling. And then, the LCC is not going to be a slouch, so they're going to come ready to play. And it's going to be a Saturday afternoon game, so we'll see what Sonora does there with that. We talked a little bit before the start of the podcast. Sonora was off on Monday, kind of took a day off there to kind of get on the Saturday schedule thing. And but we'll see how Sonora does. I think the rest of those guys are, pretty close. Wayne Trace will have a little bit of a battle. See how things turn out this week.
Yeah, I'm pretty well with Tony on that. Crestview, interesting to see what they do. Big game for Sonora. But yeah, well, pretty accurately ranked, I would say, as now.
All right, let's look at the top 10 here. 10, Edgerton. 9, Lipsick. 8, Patrick Henry. 7, Antwerp. 6, Ottawa Glandorf. Thoughts on the top 10?
I think the OG boys need to be bumped out of the 6th spot. I'm sorry, guys, but being 0-2, they definitely, in my opinion, should not be in the top 10 any longer. But
I guess my thing too with Ottawa Glandorf is they play such a tough schedule in the WBL. I think this week 3 matchup will really tell how good Ottawa Glandorf is. But I'm kind of with you, Tony. I think I could see them dropping down a little bit more.
Yeah, for me, Edgerton again, probably move up a spot or 2. Conference play kicks in next week. Same thing with Lipsick. Antwerp, pretty impressive so far. So, but pretty accurately ranked, I would say.
All right, let's look at the top 5 here. 5, Wauseon. 4, Columbus Grove. 3, Liberty Center. 2, Archbold. 1, Van Wert. I'll come out and say first and foremost, Wauseon is tough because it's like, is the loss against Sonora a fluke or is it true? And it's like, where do you put Wauseon? Because they have all this talent.
Correct.
And how do they rebound this week? So.
Yeah, I would say at least without knowing anything about what went on at Wauseon this week, Coach Moore probably had them boys just having a heck of a practice. I think they just kind of – I don't know that you can just come into Sonora and – the fantastic crowd and the atmosphere we had and kind of just take it for granted. I guess maybe they saw the game against Liberty Center that Sonora had and it looked just awful. So they came in to Sonora we got this great offense. We're just going to cakewalk. And I don't know. I'm not sure what happened there, but that's definitely not the Wauseon team that we all expected to see. I'm assuming. And outside of the first drive, you take that away, had 2 touchdowns called back on penalty, just a couple other plays that time management, like Tony said, and a few other things that Wauseon just didn't look like they were ready to play, I guess.
Yeah, the turnovers was huge.
Yep.
That was a huge thing. I mean, 4 total turnovers. I think the one actually went down as a fumble, right? Or was it an interception?
I think they put it as a fumble, but I think we called it interception because basically it landed in his arms.
Yeah,
but regardless, it's a turnover.
Yeah, turnover. So, and that one was at the 3-yard line.
Yeah.
And, so they were getting ready to score on that one. They had 2 called back, 2 touchdowns called back, plus the one that was picked off at the 3.
Yep. I
mean, that game goes either. I mean, it really just went the other way in a hurry if that stuff doesn't happen. Yep. So,
and I think too, obviously I bumped Archbold up to number 2. I think they kind of solidified that spot with that
Absolutely
respectable win against St. Henry. And I think Van Wert's still holding strong at number 1. I mean, I don't really see them going anywhere the way they're playing and the talent that they have, and especially with Aiden Pratt and Brylan Parker and some of those good wide receivers that they have. I think Van Wert's the team to beat in Northwest Ohio right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. They're not. I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon.
All you did was make the Liberty Center people mad, Logan.
Yeah. I think, like we said too, the NWOL is just going to beat themselves up. So I'm excited for conference play.
Oh, that's going to be great.
Yeah. I mean, I think we talk at the NWOL, the GMC, even too. I really don't think there's one team in either of the conferences that has stood out so much higher than all the others. So.
I'm going to tell you, I'll be shocked, and we'll talk about this at the end of the season. I'll be shocked if any team in any conference runs a table.
Yeah,
especially
I'd say that's a fair
GMC or the NWOL. If a team runs a table, that's impressive because there are some really good teams out there this year. And I really don't think I think the conference champion is going to have a loss somewhere.
Yep.
I had originally said at the beginning, in our first the preseason thing, that Antwerp has a chance at doing it, but seeing some of these other teams in the conference, I don't know. I think you're right. I don't think they're going to end up with a loss somewhere. Now, whether they end up with the conference title or not, who knows? Because it's going to go one direction or the other very quickly.
All right. Let's go ahead and we'll take another break to hear from our sponsors here, and we'll be right back. Fairchild Family Chiropractic aims to help families to get better together in the least invasive way possible. Dr. Fairchild focuses on the neck using the Blair technique and Palmer package, adjusting to correct spinal misalignments. Located in Defiance, Ohio, call Dr. Fairchild today at 419-576-5070 to schedule an appointment. Josh Bush of Sam Schweitzer Realty is your go-to realtor in Northwest Ohio. Josh has a passion for our local community and is highly motivated to help you find your dream home, business, or farm. Located in Defiance, Ohio. Call Josh today at 419-789-1451. Northwest Ohio Basketball hosts premier basketball tournaments for boys in grades 3 to 8 in the area. Upcoming tournaments are right around the corner. Give them a call today at 419-283-5296 or check out their website at nwoball.com. Crystal Vasquez of Amerimaid Realty is a top real estate agent in Northwest Ohio. Crystal's compassion and enthusiasm allow her to find that special property or house just for you. Located in Bryan, Ohio, give her a call today at 419-799-1243. Back on the NWO Sports Podcast, and Keith, why don't you start us off with a little sound clip here?
Drink up that diesel. Let's go diesel.
You may be wondering what that is, and we'll get into it shortly, but it's time for the hot takes, and this is a section we really had fun with last week, and we're going to do it again here, but that clip is related to the first hot take we have, and that is Diesel Stoikov, defensive lineman, offensive lineman from Evergreen, has the best name in Northwest Ohio. So, Keith, why don't you explain a little bit on that clip? And,
oh, boy, absolutely. When we were growing up, me and Tony is over at our house, literally. He was like our adopted brothers. So, saw this clip during a Redskins game with John Riggins, and it just stood out, and it stood out ever since, and that was 40-some years ago. So when we saw the nickname Diesel, like we talked about that last week, like jokingly when we walked in, and then that's what I was searching for. People probably wonder, what's this guy doing over here? But I was searching for that clip during our last segment, so I found it, and yeah, that's just great. Old NFL Films audio clip.
That's something we joked around about. I mean, ever since we saw it, it was always something we joked around as kids. You know, back, I think I went back to when I ran the ball in high school. You know, it was like, go Diesel. Just something we always did. It's kind of funny. So when we saw the name, it just popped right back into the head.
I remember too, like a couple of weeks ago, you guys started saying that. I was like, what is that? You guys had to explain to me that it was a thing back in the day. And,
oh my gosh, it was so funny.
I would agree. Definitely the best nickname in Northwest Ohio.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know anyone else that has an interesting name like that. I mean, just first name Diesel, last name Stoikov.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if that's his nickname. It might be his name.
I think it's his actual name.
I'll be darned.
That's
awesome. Even better.
Pretty awesome name. So I like that hot take, and thanks for submitting that one. That's a fun one.
It sounds like somebody I don't want to mess with. It's like a Russian diesel tank.
Yeah.
Especially with last name Stoikov. It does.
Yep. I think that name suits him well for being a defensive lineman, offensive lineman.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next hot take. So we have this one sent in. All these hot takes are sent in from fans, but again, we'll keep them anonymous. Crestview takes first place in Region 26, which in Region 26, if you don't know, you have in Division 7, you have Antwerp, Lima Central Catholic, Pandora Gilboa, Edgerton, Lipsick, Tiven, Calvert, Arlington, and all those teams are in that region. So thoughts of Crestview taking first place in Region 26?
I will find out this week what they have over playing Wayne Trace, but I mean, if they pull off, obviously not going to be an upset beating Wayne Trace, but if they can go in and knock off Wayne Trace 28-7, something like that, I mean, Antwerp's going to be just tough to beat. I mean, they just have the offense just seems just put up unlimited numbers. So we'll see. Be good to see Crestview do that, but they have to be playing their top game.
And not to mention, you got LCC and Antwerp in there.
Right.
And Lipsick. Those are Edgerton. I just keep going through this list. I'm like, man, there's a lot of good teams in this region. That's to make that claim about any of these teams would be difficult because any of them could beat each other at any given point.
That's a very tough region.
Yeah, we'll see LCC live this actually Saturday for Sonora. So that'll be we'll get a better read of that team. But like you said, AJ, I don't, a little early. I think they're making that prediction.
And I kind of touched on it earlier too. I don't think Crestview's played a true opponent yet. Nothing to take away from some of the other teams, but I mean, I think Wayne Trace will be the first true test of Crestview, and I think that's somewhat of a rivalry game for them as well. So I think that will be a good matchup.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next one. Looking at the next couple hot takes, we'll be looking at the Green Meadows Conference. The first one we had sent in was Wayne Trace wins the Green Meadows Conference. So I know Wayne Trace has improved this year, but what are your guys' thoughts on this one?
Tall task in my opinion. And there's teams out there that, like we talked about, Antwerp, Edgerton, Sonora. If they see what they do the rest of the season, they obviously got to win. So we'll see what they do. But that's a pretty bold statement this early in the season.
Yeah, they start off conference play versus Edgerton, so they're going to get thrown into the fire right away. So we'll see what happens there.
We'll know first thing.
Yep. I don't see that happening.
And I think too, I do think they have some talent, but again, I think Tenora's climbing the ranks too. I mean, they had a nice win against Wauseon, and they shocked a lot of people as well. And if they can keep that up, I think they could possibly be a contender right on the edge as well. But I still think Antwerp's your front runner with Edgerton right there behind them. And honestly, I'd like to see that game. I don't know if we, unfortunately not, because we'll be covering Sonora game. But I think they play the last game of the season.
That's the last week of the season. Yep.
So what a matchup! You could potentially be two undefeated teams going into the last week. So
we'll have 105.7 in the bowl with Garrett on and
back. Are they covering that game?
I would assume he would.
I would hope so. Yeah.
And probably Andy Briggle at 100.9. I assume everybody will be over there. Yeah. So, yep.
So I think like Tony, I think that's a tall task too. So
yeah.
Let's go ahead. Let's move on. Let's talk about Tenora on the flip side. Tenora will win out the rest of the regular season. So thoughts on that hot take?
Oh, boy. Throw Tenora in there like the NWOAL. That's probably one of the tougher one of the toughest schedules remaining. Lima Central Catholic, Antwerp. Look at Ayersville. That's always you can throw that record in the air anyways.
Right.
Still have Edgerton, so there's 4 tough opponents right there. Hey, if the boys run the table, hats off to them. Please do. We'll be more than happy.
Oh, absolutely.
But me personally, I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't know. Tenora came out and had an impressive win. To say they will win out the rest of the regular season. I'm a Tenora guy. I bleed green. You know what I mean? So I just to say they're going to win out the rest of the regular season, I think that's going to be a tall task. And like Keith just said with Ayersville, we haven't even mentioned Ayersville. We keep talking about Antwerp and Edgerton, and Ayersville's playing great. Yeah. That thing could go any direction.
Yeah, especially with the LCC coming up on Saturday. Yeah, that's going to be a real tough game to play.
If Tenora wins out, we'll supply the boys with a pizza party.
And I think too,
good pizza too.
Yeah. No Little Caesars pizza. No $5 hot. No $5 hot and readies. So we got to get something a little bit more.
Yes. $5 pies and some ICB. That's an inside joke. Well, I think it was the year you were playing, Logan. You guys were playing in the state finals or something.
Went down to Wapak.
We went down to Wapakoneta, and we stopped in Little Caesars and got, I don't know, like 6 pizzas and I don't know how many Italian cheesy breads.
Yeah.
And that's how we ordered them too. Is like
ICBs.
6 pies and
Yeah.
ICBs.
Can we get 6 pies and like 6 ICBs? And it was just it's been a running joke. So
I just feel like Little Caesar pizza is something that like just cheap pizza you pick up real quick and you throw for a gathering or something like that. Yes. So, I think the win, or when they play against Lima Central Catholic on Saturday, I think that will tell a lot about Tenor. And I mean, if they do win and it's a good win against Lima Central Catholic, maybe it might be plausible that they do win out. Yep. But let's move on to the next hot take. Corey Everett's, quarterback from Edgerton, is GMC Player of the Year. Keith, you want to start this one? I know you're a big fan of Corey Everett's.
I said that during our preseason show. Long as he doesn't get injured, Corey Everett has every opportunity to be the GMC Player of the Year. Carson Ultimus up there as well, but I picked Corey preseason, so I'm going to stick with that heading into conference play next week.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard to say because a lot of these teams have been playing a lot of mixed competition, so it's hard to say who's actually where they will finish at the end of the year. Carson Ultimus has been doing really good. Corey Everett's could be one of the top runners, but it's also interesting to see how some of these other teams end up developing when they hit the league. Who's really performing at their best right now.
Yep.
It's hard to say.
Tony, you got any comments?
He's got just as good a chance as anybody else. He's probably one of the front runners, in my opinion, at this point. If I had to pick right now, it's between him and Ultimus, and it's really kind of a coin toss.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think right now, Ultimus might just have it a tad, but just because of some of the teams that they've played.
Yep.
I don't know. I think you have Ultimus from Antwerp and Everett's, and then in the GMC, and that's a huge drop off. I think it's going to be one of those two no matter what.
I agree with that.
I'm sorry. The next person I think maybe is Blake Honstein. He's been throwing up some decent numbers.
Yep.
Really, there's nobody else out there that I've been,
is really set apart from all the others.
Right.
And I think it's going to matter who can play on that consistent basis and who can win those big games. I think that's really going to make a case for Player of the Year in the Green Meadows Conference.
Yeah. Yep. And when I look at Player of the Year, at least like for when we did it for softball, I look at it as if you're looking for a Player of the Year, you're looking for somebody their team cannot win without them.
Yeah.
And I think Ultimus and Everest both fit that description. If either one of them get hurt, it's going to be a huge, huge drop to number 2.
Say, I think Corey probably has more slight advantage on defense. I mean, that will not factor into the offensive side because they give both offense and defensive players.
Yeah, and I was going to say,
but if it was just like a sole Player of the Year, I would say Corey would have the advantage over Ultimus, but if it's just separated offensive and defensively, what the GMC does, we'll see. It's going to be fun to watch.
I think that'll be interesting because I was going to mention Green Meadows Conference. I think they only do like an offensive and defensive Player of the Year. I don't know who would be front runner for defensive Player of the Year in the Green Meadows Conference. I'm trying to think of who would be some top names.
I thought Kendrick Robinson maybe for Antwerp. I think just pops in my head without even thinking. But Kendrick. Yeah. He's quite the presence. Yes, he's
a reason.
Yes,
I was just trying to think of some names, and I think I'm not sure how he's done exactly this year, but Race Price from Wayne Tracy, he had 7 interceptions last year and led the area. But again, you look at the Green Meadows Conference. Did they really throw the ball all that much in order to have another year with 7 interceptions? So. I think honestly, defensive Player of the Year would be almost more interesting than offense, just because we kind of know some of the front runners for offense, but I think someone's really got to emerge on the defensive side. So, all right, let's move on to the next one. Next hot take: Liberty Center wins state. So we got to see them play firsthand, and I tell you what, Liberty Center Tigers, they're pretty good, but to win state, I think that's a whole nother level. So, what are your guys' thoughts on this hot take?
Well, too early to say.
Yeah, it's too early to say, but Liberty Center was there last year. You know what I mean? They were right there knocking on the door last year, and once you've been there once, I mean, Logan, you were there. I mean, once you're there, the second time there, it's a little bit, and
start getting used to that atmosphere a little bit. Yeah,
AJ, you guys did it through baseball too, so I mean, same thing. So it's just once you play in those kind of atmospheres and you start playing those bigger games and bigger crowds and the bigger stadiums, and I don't know. I'd love to see Liberty Center win state, but that means Sonora's not in.
Well, plus,
you know what I mean?
Plus, it means they went through a gauntlet just to get there.
That region, like we've said time and time and again, that's such a tough region. I mean, honestly, and we talked too. I mean, if you come out of that Region 18 and Division 5, you're probably going to win state. I mean, like again, you have Coldwater and Eastwood and Elmwood, and we got to see Elmwood in a scrimmage. And Elmwood's
pretty impressive.
They're the real deal
Absolutely.
too.
Yeah,
I mean,
yes,
they have that Mason Oliver kid at running back, and their quarterback looked I can't think of his name, but
he looked
very good wide receiver. So I think I really like Elmwood and Eastwood in the region. But again, Liberty Center's got to go through a gauntlet, both in NWAL play and in the in playoff play.
no
I was
no
thinking
break.
the conference play, they're going to take a beating there. Even if they win all the way through it, they're still going to be taking a beating, health-wise and morale-wise. You get to the end of that season, you're dragging a little bit because, man, you're just beat up. So by the time you hit playoffs, you kind of get a little bit of a spark going back to the playoffs. But you go through this whole gauntlet of the conference, then it's like, you're only halfway through the gauntlet.
Yeah,
right.
And I think the thing too that Liberty Center has going for them, we know they have talent. We know that they have good coaches.
Yep.
The depth that they have, they have
That's
60.
amazing.
They had 68
kids,
and the fact that they have multiple good running backs that their coach can rely on to take number one reps. I mean, that's a lot too. I mean, and come down deep playoff runs, it's a lot of times too, it's who can stay the healthiest as a team.
Zyder's a dual threat. You really haven't seen it yet. But Zane Zyder's.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, the same thing. Staying healthy, that's going to be huge. If they stay healthy, they've got just as good a chance, I think, at winning state as anybody else out there. And you got to remember that, you think about Coldwater and Archbold and all those teams that are in a region, each one of those guys get knocked off every week, right? So somebody out there is going to be helping you work your way through that gauntlet. So,
Right.
I don't know. That'd be that's an interesting one. And my hats off to Liberty Center because they played well last year and unfortunately didn't get there.
Yeah, I think that's a good hot take, especially early on in the season. So I'll be curious to see how they do their.
I mean,
rest.
Liberty Center lost to Cary, right?
Yeah.
Cary won state, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, Cary knocked Tenor out and then beat Liberty Center.
Yep.
And then they ended up winning state. So I mean, Liberty Center. Good luck.
All right, next hot take: Evergreen beats Ottawa Hills. Ottawa Hills only beat Swanton by 10. I really like Evergreen this year. I don't know. I said I was riding North Central, riding on their bus. I think I'm hopping on Evergreens too. So I mean, I think this is a very viable hot take. I mean, Coach Karchner's doing good things, and
I'm with you.
So and especially seeing Ottawa Hills only beating Swanton by 10, I think that says a lot about Ottawa Hills.
I tell you what, if Evergreen was to win this game, I mean, who knows what could happen in conference play? You beat Ottawa Hills, and you start conference play 3-0. You'd probably jump 10 feet in the air. I mean, you're just riding high.
I mean, think about that. They'd be 3-0. Liberty Center, assuming they win and Archbold wins, they both win this week. They're 3-0 and they're right there with Archbold and Liberty Center starting the season 3-0. And like you said, it depends. You never know what's going to happen coming out of that. So
you play Ottawa Hills and you play Delta, so you could conceivably be 4-0. I mean, wow.
Yeah,
who would have thought?
I think too. I think you can quote me now. I think Evergreen upsets either. I don't know, one of your top teams. I think. I kind of look at it. I think they, I don't know who exactly, but I think you look at Archbold, Wauseon, Liberty Center, Patrick Henry, even Bryan. I consider them kind of the top of the league. Mm-hmm. I guarantee that they beat one, if not two, of those teams. You can quote me now saying that, but I'm really buying into the Evergreen Vikings right now.
I can see them winning two of those games.
Yeah, yes. I think that after watching Wauseon live. I can definitely see them. People are going to study that game film at Sonora. They're going to see that, and I agree with you, Logan. I think that can happen, definitely.
All right, let's move on to the next hot take. Looking at another Green Meadows Conference champion. This one's got a little bit of a twist to it. So Amber wins every regular season game, by 14 points or more. So not only are they winning every regular season game, but by 14 points or more. So 2 touchdowns or more. What are you guys' thoughts on this hot take?
I'll start off. I think it's possible. It's not a very far-fetched thought, but man, is it going to be a tough one. It's not going to be an easy feat to accomplish, but it's possible. We'll see when Antwerp enters into the league play in 2 weeks what that talent level difference is. Right now, they're playing very well. So is Edgerton. So Ayersville's starting to pick it up quite a bit. It's going to be hard to pull off 14 points, but it's possible.
They play Hilltop and Hicksville. That's our next 2 opponents. So obviously they're going to probably beat them by 14 points.
Probably beat Fairview by 14 points.
Antwerp comes to Tenora on the 16th. So if Coach Krause has the boys ready like they did against Wauseon, I'm not saying Tenora's going to win that game, but Tenora has one of the better defensive in the GMC. I mean, just as on paper and what we saw last week.
Year in, year out.
The Rams could throw a little monkey wrench in that.
I agree.
Well, we'll see. I mean, to me, that's probably Antwerp's toughest game coming up on the whole schedule to that point would be that week 5 game is it week 5 or 6? Week 5 at Tenora, so on the 16th.
I think it's going to come down to exactly what we talked about at Wauseon, whether Tenora can put some pressure on him, on Ultimus, make him move, make him create a mistake, just like we did, when Radzik picked him off, but you're going to have to be able to contain him, and so it'll be interesting. 14 points. I mean, I just looked at the thing right now. They beat Eden by 18 points, if my math is right.
Yep.
So I'm going to say no. I want to say no, they're not going to get there.
That would be my
I'm going to throw that out there.
Go-to answer would be no, but with the caveat that it is possible.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. I think the Edgerton game is going to be the one that is most interesting for me to watch because I think that's going to be a slugfest. I think you're going to see a high-scoring game. They're both offenses are pretty powerful right now.
Yep.
So I think you're going to be seeing, 25, 30 points both sides of the ball, but I don't know if the difference is going to be 14 or not.
Yeah, if you would have said, if they would have sent in Antwerp wins every regular season game, period, no, by 14 points, I would have probably said yeah, but by 14 points or more, I'm saying no chance at all because you have Tenora, and we've seen how good their defense can play. It's a matter of if they can just be consistent with it. Yep. We saw Wayne Trace, again, play against a very good Patrick Henry team and only lost 12-0, and that wasn't even 14 points there. Yep. And then Edgerton as well. I'm going to say no chance at all that they win by 14 points or more the rest of the regular season. Antwerp's good, don't get me wrong, but throw in Ayersville too. I mean, I think Ayersville can compete in the Green Meadows Conference, so I don't think there's any chance that the Archers win by 14 points or more every single game for the rest of the season. So
I'm with you.
Let's go ahead. Let's move on to the last hot take. This one's going to Defiance, and it was sent in. Defiance is a sleeper, and I'll lead it off here. So Defiance has definitely shown some improvement. They had a respectable 28-7 win against Napoleon in week 1, and they hung with St. Mary's 21-6. And last year, Defiance lost to St. Mary's 56-0, and they've been blown out really the last handful of years by them. And if you look at that game a little bit closer, the game itself should have been closer. Defiance had a couple of chances down in the red zone and even had a field goal attempt that was blocked and returned 95 yards for a St. Mary's touchdown. If you take away that and they put up a couple of touchdowns when they're down in the red zone, I mean, Defiance could have won that game easily. And I think we saw against Napoleon that their offense and defense are both. I think they have some nice athletes, and that I really like that Brez Zipfel, the quarterback, and Brogan Castillo, and even Christian Camaso in defense at linebacker. He's doing some big things too.
Yeah. I've told a couple of guys I work with, their kids play on the Defiance team, and I said that going into the game, Christian's going to make more of an impact, at least at Defiance, probably on defense, whereas if it was at Sonora, he'd be more of a dual threat, but Christian is just like one of those spark plugs. You put him in defense, and he can just make stuff happen. as far as Defiance is a sleeper, anytime you have Coach Cooper coaching you, I don't know that you're a sleeper. It's like if you're a Defiance fan, what's your goal as far as a record as you came into the season? Right now they're 1-1. Could they be 2-0? Possibly. Unlikely, but possible. I play Van Wert this week. That's another uphill battle there. So we'll see what Defiance does against Van Wert. That's probably more of a gauge coming off games against St. Mary's and Van Wert as to where your conference season is going to go. But is Defiance a sleeper? Possibly, yes.
We were talking during the power rankings where I kind of mentioned it, Defiance. I don't know that they're really a 13. I think, maybe Bryan should be higher. Not that Defiance is worse than Wayne Trace or Napoleon. I just think there's a couple teams below them that should be higher. And, Defiance has some stuff to prove yet. And if they can, good on them. I'd be happy to see Defiance do well. They could be a sleeper. They could absolutely be a sleeper. I would look forward to seeing them prove that point.
Tony, you have any thoughts?
I'm gonna make some Defiance people mad. I was just gonna say sleeping maybe, but not sleeper.
That's a bold statement.
I don't think Defiance is where they need to be, from what I've heard and what I've read about them. They're going into Van Wert this week, and if they're going to be a sleeper, they're going to have to knock off the Van Wert team. That would prove that. Then maybe they're the sleeper team, but that's a huge task to knock off Van Wert, and then they just run through the WBL, and so they'll have to play Lida also. So I'm not sure what they mean by sleeper.
Yeah, so I guess we kind of have to define what their thought is on sleeper.
I just don't. I don't think Defiance is to that point yet where they're going to sneak up on people and say, "Hey, we're going to blow people."
We're going to have OG, Wapa, Canetta. Like Elida, like you said, Tony.
I just don't think they're going to be able to sneak away and take a.
I think looking from it outside in, I almost kind of look as Defiance in the WBL, kind of like Evergreen in the NWAL.
Right.
I think that they're doing some good things. Coach Cooper's doing some good things there. I could see them possibly getting a win against like an Ottawa Glandor for maybe a Wapakoneta, some teams that are historically at the top of the WBL.
Mm-hmm.
More than one win, I don't know about that, but I could see them possibly getting in a win this year. I mean, even like St. Mary's is projected to be at top of the WBL, and for Defiance to compete like that and have a chance, honestly, if you look back at the game, a couple of plays go Defiance's way. I mean, they could possibly win, but I don't know about a true sleeper, kind of like what you were saying, Tony, but I think they could possibly have an upset in the conference this year in the WBL.
I mean, if like I said earlier, if you're an outsider or you're close to the program, if you see Defiance wind up at 6-4, is that a disappointing season?
Yeah,
honestly, I don't think it is.
Well, that's what I just got ready to look at. I mean, you're if you're above 500, that's going to be hey, I finished 6-4, but 6-4. Did they get in the playoffs at 6-4? So I guess that's what I would consider a sleeper if they snuck into the playoffs and nobody's expected them to. But
I mean, your non-conference schedule is just.
I see them. They got a loss to St. Mary's. Van Wert's going to be tough. I don't see them sneaking out of there with a win, especially since they're at Van Wert. I'm not real sure about Shawnee, but Kenton's always got a good team. Elida, like Logan said, probably Ottawa Glandorf, the way they're playing this year, that could probably they could walk away with that one to win, especially since it's at home. And then going back down to Wapakoneta, that possibly sneak away with one there too. So, like you said, Keith, coming out 6-4. 5-5. I don't consider that a sleeper.
That's not a horrible. Well, that's not a sleeper whatsoever. Nor is that a horrible season with the schedule.
Right.
So
yeah, absolutely.
And honestly, I can't even tell you when was it the last time Defiance had a winning season? I think at least probably.
I would say close to a decade ago.
I was going to say. So I mean, 13, even if you can break 5-5, I would say. Again, with Coach Cooper trying to turn the program around, I would say that's a win for Defiance program. I mean, you can't turn everything around in one day. I mean, if you go to have a 5-5 season, you're moving in the right direction. You're not having another 2-win season, another 3-win season. You're climbing the ropes and you're making your way towards becoming a winning program.
Correct.
All right. Well, that finishes our hot takes, and I think that we'll continue to do that throughout the season. So continue sending your hot takes in. I mean, that's fun to talk about and see what people have to say about Northwest Ohio football.
Definitely generates good conversation.
Oh yeah, definitely, and I like it. It's fun. We have fun with it, so that's a section we always look forward to.
Yeah, I don't want anybody getting mad at me. Yeah, they say Defiance isn't a sleeper, and I don't want to get my car tire slashed or something. Come on,
It's always a good time though. So let's go ahead. We'll go into our Week 3 game predictions. So let's go ahead and start looking at the first matchup: Lake 0-2 at Archbold 2-0, and I think this is a no-brainer. I think Archbold's playing really well right now. Lake having no wins right now. I'm going Archbold Blue Streaks, and I think they're going to win big. I'm going Archbold.
I took Archbold too. Very impressive win last week over St. Henry. So go Streaks.
I thought it was kind of an easy pick on that one. Archbold.
Yep. I'm with you guys.
And Bryce had Archbold, and I was showing all the guys the Archbold Barstool thing, and we got a kick out of that. So, again, we appreciate any feedback. So, Bryce is going Archbold, and I think he's riding the Archbold bandwagon after he heard that. So, let's go ahead. Let's move to the next pick. Delta 1-1 at Paulding 0-2. Even though Paulding's been showing some improvement, they've been showing some compete. I think Delta wins this game, but I think Paulding's gonna. I think they're gonna take it down, not to the wire, but at least make it a game and not get blown out. I'm going Delta.
Yeah, I took Delta as well. Again, a game probably closer than what people think it's going to be.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Paulding's probably going to be, they might even be leading going into halftime, seeing as what they've done the last couple of weeks here, in terms of growing. But I don't think Paulding's going to be able to continue to hang in there with Delta the whole game. I think Delta's going to come away with it.
I almost picked Delta. Actually, I had Delta, and then I backed out of it. Or I'm sorry, Paulding. I almost picked Paulding. I backed out of it, and I went ahead and went Delta. So I'm going Delta as well, but I think Paulding might surprise everybody.
And Bryce had Delta as well. I think, Tony, you kind of said it too. I think there's a couple games this week I was really back and forth on. Like, I had to go back and change my pick, and I thought about it some more, and then went back and changed my pick again. So
yeah, I had Paulding in there, and I'm like, man, I don't know.
Yeah,
I thought about leaving him in there just so I'm different than everybody else. But
right, yeah.
Now, I haven't looked to see who they play next week, but I think you give them another week of developing. It depends on who they play next week, but I think they have a chance at, next week will be their week of turning around a bit.
Ayersville.
Oh, well, maybe not so much next week. I have to look at the schedule, but I really think they're going to come away with a couple wins, mid-season here as they start, they're continuing to develop, and they're starting to do well given the circumstances.
All right, we'll look at the next game. Wayne Trace 1-1 at Crestview 2-0. And this was one of those games I was back and forth. I had originally Wayne Trace at first, and I thought about it, and I think the thing that really had me is Crestview played a couple easier teams to start. Wayne Trace has played some better quality teams. They played Fort Recovery, got a win. They played a good Patrick Henry team as well. I ended up going Crestview, but I think the game's going to be close. So your guys' picks.
I had Wayne Trace in this one also. I picked Wayne Trace in there, and then I changed my mind and backed out, went to Crestview only because they're playing at Crestview.
That too.
So I gave them the home field advantage.
That's solely the reason I went with Crestview is for home field advantage.
I took Crestview too. Actually, on paper, one of the better games in the area.
Yeah, I think so. And we talked about it being like a rivalry game as well. Mm-hmm. So Bryce had Crestview, so Crestview across the board for everyone. Next game, Ayersville 1-1 at Bluffton 1-1. I had the Pilots. I believe I did a little bit of research. Bluffton lost pretty big to Pandora Gilboa earlier. Pandora Gilboa is a pretty good team in the area. Obviously, we don't cover them, but I'm going the Pilots. I think they win pretty big this game.
Yeah, I took Ayersville too. Coach Mickey seems to have them playing well, so took Pilots.
Yeah, I went with the Pilots. I truly don't think Ayersville's a 1-1 team. I think they're a 2-0 team. They just had a little bit of a fluke towards the end of that Delta game. So Ayersville
as well.
And I think Bryce likes picking against everyone else. I think one of these times it's going to pay for him. He's going to catch us up, even though he's in last place for the picks. But Bryce went Bluffton. But I think he's a people pleaser. He likes picking the oddball, and when he proves people wrong, he gets all the credit. So I just had to laugh at that one.
Future politician.
There you go. I'll have to tell Bryce that. Look at the next game. Patrick Henry 2-0 at Columbus Grove 1-1. I think this is probably one of the better games in the area as well. I thought Columbus Grove would have done a little bit better last week against Liberty Benton, but Liberty Benton must be the pretty good team. I'm going Columbus Grove. They're playing at home. That's a tough place to win at. We watched Tenor play over there a couple of years ago. What an atmosphere.
That was great.
That whole community comes out and supports
fantastic.
Columbus Grove, and that's awesome to see. But I'm going Columbus Grove in this game.
Yeah, I took Columbus Grove well.
Yeah, I could not decide on this one. It took me – I left this one blank. I just skipped over it for a while and came back, and I ended up going with Columbus Grove. But, man, Patrick Henry is a pretty dominant team, so I don't know. And you said Columbus Grove tends to bring a big crowd, but so does Patrick Henry. You know, at least when I was in school, I hated playing against them.
We don't have a game Friday, but this one right here would be worth traveling over there just to check it out.
Yeah, I always remember playing them in baseball, and I hated it because, man, there was just always so many fans there, always getting in your ear. And I know, if it's anything like that in football now, either team, I wouldn't want to play against these guys right now.
Well, I stepped out of the box here.
I was waiting for you to.
I stepped out of the box here. I went with Coach Inselman and the Patriots. I think Columbus Grove got knocked off their win streak, and I think they're going to stumble again this week. And I think PH is going to be there to take advantage of that.
And Bryce had Columbus Grove, so Tony went against the grain on that one. So we'll see who wins that game. Look at the next game: Tenor at Liberty Center or at Lima Central Catholic. Tenor 1-1. Lima Central Catholic 2-0. Lima Central Catholic, they're doing big things down there. I got a chance to watch them play last year in the playoffs against Eden, and they just tore Eden apart. They have a really good quarterback. I can't think of his name right now.
Carson Parker.
Carson Parker. He is a stud, I tell you what. And I wish I could see him. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately. I'm getting married. I'm getting married Saturday.
Oh, my gosh. What? Unfortunately. Oh, we'll edit that one out, guys.
Yeah. Not unfortunately. I wanted to watch him play, but I got bigger and better things to do Saturday.
There you go.
So.
Good recovery.
Did not mean to put it like that.
Yeah, Gracie apologizes.
Yeah. I'll have to. Hopefully, Grace doesn't watch the podcast. But.
Well, we'll send her the link tomorrow. Don't worry, Logan.
No, just gotta put that shovel down and stop digging.
Yeah, I guess.
Stop. That's funny.
But I think LCC. Even though we saw Tenora put up a good performance against Wauseon, I don't know. I think LCC wins by a couple scores. I think Tenora comes out and shows some improvement, but Liberty Center, Lima Central Catholic. I think they're the real deal this year, and I think they have a shot at winning the D7 Ohio State Championship.
Yeah, Logan, you hit on the head. This Carson Parker's got 500+ yards rushing through 2 games as a quarterback.
Jesus.
So,
you and I were talking about that at the meeting last night for the boosters, and Tenora is going to have a hard time containing him because even if they can get some pressure on him, he's just going to run and he's going to be gone. It's going to be hard to contain.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. So, hopefully, Coach Krause can pull off, just a defensive lockdown on this kid. But I took Lima Central Catholic.
I went with Tenora. Hopefully, Tenora can get something rolling here, and if they can contain him. And I read about that also. I was like, maybe this quarterback, but Coach H just seems to come away with game plans against great quarterbacks. He's done it in the past. Yep. Did it against Lima Central Catholic, in my opinion, when we were in the state tournament several, like 2010, 2009, 10, something like that. And I really think Tenor should come away with that win. And they had a great quarterback then. And I just think we'll see what Tenor can do. I'm keep my fingers crossed this week.
Yeah, we saw it last year against Ultimus as well. Just a good defensive game plan against them. It'll be interesting to see how they respond to a quarterback that's fast like this.
And Bryce had Tenora as well. And I think, too, looking at the defensive side for Tenora, I mean, you got Casey Helton, Jeff Schleiser, and then you got Coach H's his viewpoint on things, too. I think you got three football minds all thinking about schematics. I think that's really going to benefit Tenora this year, especially with Coach 8 giving his input on some younger coaches, too, at Tenora. I think that will really benefit the Ram defense.
Yeah, like I said, he's been there forever, and I don't think that that, he's been in the program for decades, as Keith says. I don't think you're going to do anything that's going to surprise him,
Yeah, and like I said, too, even though he's not coaching per se, he's still coming up with scouting reports and giving his input. So he's just as big as a coach as anyone else. Let's look at the next game. Hilltop 0-2 at Antwerp 2-0. I hate to say it, but Hilltop's losing streak is going to continue because Antwerp is just going to roll again. I really hope the best for Hilltop. I hope they break their streak this year, but it's not going to happen this week.
Coach Hale in Antwerp, please have mercy on Hilltop this week. Just please. Yeah, I'm taking Antwerp.
Yeah, I'm taking Antwerp. I would be surprised if it's not 30-plus at halftime.
I think it'll be running clock in the first quarter.
I was giving them the benefit of the doubt a little bit, but it's going to be quite a slaughter over there against Antwerp.
Yep, and Bryce said Antwerp. So Antwerp all across the board for us. Next game, Leipzig 1-1 at Pandora Gilboa. I kind of like this game too. I think another good game. I'm going to go Leipzig. And I really liked the way that they competed against Liberty Benton. That was a winnable game for Leipzig. I believe it was either by a field goal or it was very close. But Pandora Gilboa put up a tough game against Columbus Grove. But this is another game I'd want to watch this season or this week, I should say.
Yep, on paper it's really great. I took the Vikings of Leipzig.
Yeah, I went with Leipzig as well. Just I really like Leipzig this year. For whatever reason, they just kind of strike me as a team to watch, so I went with them.
Leipzig for me, too. I was like Logan. I thought they played well against Liberty Benton.
And Bryce had Pandora Gilboa, but honestly, I think that game you could almost flip a coin and it could go either way. I'm excited to see I think it will be a game that really determines how good both these teams are. Looking at the next game, Evergreen 2-0 at Ottawa Hills 2-0. Thursday night game, again, like we said, moved up because of the reffing shortage. I'm right in the Evergreen Viking train, choo-choo all the way. So I'm going Evergreen.
Boy.
I went with Ottawa Hills. I think last week with the going back to the hot take here, Ottawa Hills only beating Swanton by 10. I don't think that's a true test of what Ottawa Hills is. I think, they kind of I guess I'm trying to think of the way to phrase it, but I think they just kind of slept on it a little bit. I don't think Swanton held them to, less than 10. I think Ottawa Hills just kind of, sputtered off a little bit. And I think they're going to come back this week and prove a point.
I'm pulling for Evergreen, but I took Ottawa Hills.
I'm with Logan on this one. Evergreen, I think, is going to be the real deal this year. And I think they're going to knock these guys off.
And Bryce had Evergreen as well. And, if you're Evergreen, how can you lose with a kid named Diesel Stoikov? So, they have that going for him, too. What a cool name.
I'm going to have to go to that game and just sit in the stands and yell that out a couple times.
Play that audio clip.
Right, there you go. Next game, Napoleon 0-2 at Wauseon 1-1. And this was another game I think this will be a good game to watch. A lot of good games this week. I think Napoleon, like I've said time and time again, I think they have some talent and they've showed some glimpses here and there, but I'm going to go Wauseon. I think they rebound this week. Again, they have one of the top passing offenses with receivers and Elijah McLeod at quarterback. I think they bounce back and they beat Napoleon.
I took Wauseon as well, but if I woke up Saturday morning and didn't see any score on Friday and I saw Napoleon won, I guess I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I'm going with Wauseon, but I won't be surprised if it goes either way.
I'm with Wauseon. I think they're going to come back and make a point.
And Bryce had Wauseon. So Wauseon from all of us. Next game, Van Wert 2-0 at Defiance 1-1. Though Defiance has showed some improvement, I think Van Wert wins big. Again, we know Van Wert is probably best team in Northwest Ohio right now. I'm going Van Wert.
Yep, Van Wert.
Wow, Van Wert at Defiance. I just found out what I do Friday night now. Yeah. Wow. I took Van Wert, but that'd be an interesting watch, honestly.
Yeah.
Just to see where Defiance is against a talented team like Van Wert.
And I think it'd be nice to see some of those really good athletes from Van Wert, like the Pratt kid and the Brylan Parker and Crutchfield and
Absolutely.
the Gunner kid. I think all those athletes are great kids. So, I mean, that might be a good game just to watch some of that talent.
Van Wert for me.
And Bryce had Van Wert as well. Van Wert from all of us. Next game, Fairview 0-2 at Bryan 1-1. Again, I think they're a good team this year. I'm taking Bryan, and they're winning big.
I got the same. I got Coach Redhead and the Golden Bears, big.
Yep, I'm definitely going with Bryan on this game.
And Bryce had Bryan. Again, Bryan from all of us. Next game, Elida 2-0 at Ottawa Glandorf 0-2. And I guess I'm the only one that picked Ottawa Glandorf this week. You should call
Sorry,
me,
Logan. I bailed on you, buddy.
Yes, you should call me Tony now.
I bailed.
I'm going, even though Ottawa Glandorf has an 0-2 record, they lost by 7 points to Wapakoneta. They lost to a very good Eastwood team. I think Elida's overrated. It being 2-0, I mean, they have a couple wins, but I think Ottawa Glandorf comes out this week and they get their first win, especially being at home. They got brand new turf. Mommy Bay put it in. Excellent facility. So I'm going OG.
Coach, I took Elida, but Coach Schreiner over there at OG, perfect chance to right the ship and get the first victory of the year.
Yeah, I went with Elida here.
I'm sorry. OG, I bailed on you. I went with Elida this week.
That's all right, Tony. I took it over
All
for
right.
you.
Yeah, they'll probably win this week, you punk.
Right. Bryce had Elida too. So
I almost picked him just as a point, just to say, okay, I'm sticking with them. No, all year I'm going to pick OG.
Yeah,
They're going to win a game, and I'll win that one, and everybody else will be wrong. But
yeah. Well, hopefully they win for my sake. I need to get a couple extra wins and get up there with Tony and or Keith and AJ.
yeah, don't worry about me. I'm down at the bottom. I've been picking OG, remember?
Yeah, that's right. All right. Next game, Hicksville 0-2 at Eden 0-2. Wow. Just saying Eden 0-2 is kind of shocking to say. But I'm going Eden. They win big. Bob Olin offense is going to be in full effect, and I think they light up the scoreboard.
Yeah, I took Eden. That should be probably a running clock in the second half.
Yeah, I'm going with Eden.
Yeah, probably Eden by about 40, I'm guessing.
And Bryce had Eden as well. Next game, Montpelier 0-2 at Edgerton 2-0. Again, Montpelier struggled a little bit the first two games. Edgerton's they're playing very well right now. Corey Everett is the real deal. I'm going Edgerton.
I took Edgerton as well.
Yeah, I don't think Montpelier's struggle is going to end anytime soon playing Edgerton this week. It's going to be another steamroll. So Edgerton.
Edgerton for me.
And Bryce said Edgerton as well. Next game. This is going to be the NWO Sports Game of the Week. Too bad it's in Otsego, which is a little bit further away. I would love to see this. I think this is really going to tell us how good Liberty Center is and if they can hold true to that hot take that they win state championship. But Otsego's 2-0. I know they lost some kids. But I'm going to go Liberty Center, but I think this is a really good ball game. I mean, if you're available Friday night, this would be one of probably my top three in the area to go watch come Friday. So I'm going Liberty Center Tigers.
Yeah, it's definitely an intriguing matchup. I went with the Tigers.
I went with the Tigers here. Very close one to call, but anytime somebody that beats a team that I like to see that team succeed. So Liberty Center beating Tenora. Now I want to see Liberty Center do better to prove that getting beat by Liberty Center wasn't a terrible thing. So I'm always rooting for Liberty Center from here on out.
And this was one of those that I had Otsego in there, and then I talked myself out of it, and I was like, well, I don't want to go against the grain again. And I went back with Liberty Center. I do think Liberty Center is probably the better team, but I thought maybe Otsego might have enough to push that envelope.
We did see against Napoleon. They had kind of a slow start, and Napoleon,
right?
They were winning that game. So, I mean, again, I think this could be a toss-up for a game as well. And Bryce had Liberty Center. Liberty Center from all of us. North Central 1-1 at Fremont, Indiana 2-0. I'm going Fremont, Indiana. I can say I don't know much about them because they play in Indiana. I looked up some of their scores. They won by a decent amount, a couple games. But again, North Central, I wish them the best. They're still a startup program. Yep. I'm going to go Fremont, Indiana.
Same with my earlier pick. Pulling for North Central, but I took Fremont.
Yeah, Fremont as well.
Same here.
And Bryce had Fremont. So Fremont, again, from all of us. Last 11-man game, Swanton 0-2 at Toledo Rogers 0-2. Though Swanton played Ottawa Hills pretty tough last week. I'm still going to go Toledo Rogers just because of the fact of their schedule and some of the teams they played to start the game or start the year. I'm going to go Toledo Rogers here.
Same. I went Rogers.
Yep, Toledo Rogers.
Yeah, I don't know that Swanton can right that ship yet.
And Bryce had Toledo Rogers as well. A couple 8-man games here. Holgate 0-1 at St. Mary's Central Catholic. Again, St. Mary's, I don't believe, I couldn't find anything that they've played a game yet, so they're actually 0-0. But last year, I know historically they have a pretty good 8-man program. I'm going St. Mary's.
I took Holgate. Honestly, I don't know much about either team, so I'm just pulling for Holgate.
I just went with Holgate 'cause I'm always pulling for them to just get back into the fold when it comes to football of any kind. So I went with Holgate.
Holgate for me.
And Bryce had St. Mary's as well. And then the last game here for our predictions is Morenci, Michigan 0-1 at Stryker 1-0. Again, get out there and support these 8-man programs as well. A lot of times they play on Saturdays. So, again, you can watch football on Friday, Saturday too. You can watch some college games on Saturday, NFL games on Sunday. So there's plenty of football to go around, but these teams deserve just as much. But after seeing what Stryker did last week to Jerome, North Adams Jerome, I think Stryker wins big, and I think Stryker does big things this year. So I'm excited to see what they have and hopefully get out there and watch a game at Stryker or Holgate this year.
Yeah.
So.
I took Stryker. Interesting to see what Levi Barnum can do this week.
That's what I
Name to watch, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I went with Stryker as well.
Yeah, I thought the same thing as Keith. See if Barnum can throw up another 300 yards.
Yep.
And last pick here, Bryce had Stryker, so Stryker from all of us. Well, that concludes our podcast. That's the end of the third one. And wow, like I said, I mean, the season's just moving along, but closing thoughts from you guys.
It just continues to be an impressive season to see some of these teams that are so closely matched this year. This is going to be one of the most enjoyable seasons to take part of, a podcast like this, because things are just so tight in multiple conferences. So it's going to be fun to continue to watch and to see how things change over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, for me, teams closing up tough non-conference schedules. Tenora number one, getting ready to start your league schedule. So teams winding up their non-league schedule, preparing for the league schedule. So, and best of luck to Logan and Grace this Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Good luck to you. But
Appreciate it.
yeah, I mean, when it comes to the football thing, get to that. And I just think you look at these teams coming, like he said, coming out of their non-conference schedules. I think, honestly, Tenor probably has one of the toughest ones, if not the toughest non-conference schedule. I mean, playing two tough NWAL teams and then driving to LCC and playing a good team down there. Yep. So, it'll prepare them for the grind in the GMC, but it'll be interesting and see what happens. And then Logan will forget all about football Saturday night. He don't care about the Buckeyes. He won't care about what's going on.
Right.
He'll be happily married and not worrying about football for a couple days maybe.
So at least put on hold for a little bit. Like I said, I'm a football fanatic, so
awesome.
But Saturday I'll have to get shoved to the side. So. But I just want to thank you guys again for coming on. I've had a blast so far this year, and it's such a fun time getting with you guys and talking about some area football teams and showcasing these great athletes. So I just want to thank you guys all again.
Yeah, nothing but positive reviews. Every week somebody different comes up and says, "Hey, we watched your podcast. Pretty good time." Like, definitely, it's great.
Yeah,
so
we just had somebody Friday night come up to us in the booth and said something about it, so it's neat. Kids listening, and it's funny that the lady that came up to us at the ball game the other night, a coach's son, and she came up, "Hey, he was listening to your game." And he's like, "Hey, that's Coach," and so that's kind of neat for me to kids are listening for my voice, so it's kind of neat.
Yep. So I think everything's been going well. So we'll continue to do it week on week basis. Yep. So. I'd just like to thank, from all of us, our sponsors, 3Chord, Bat & Stevens Body Shop, Tenor Rams Live, Jimenez Basketball Academy, Fairchild Family Chiropractic, Josh Bush of Sam Schweitzer Realty, NWO Basketball, and Crystal Vasquez of Amerimaid Realty. We would also like to give a special thanks again to Jeff Batt for allowing us to use his amazing new facility at Bat & Stevens Body Shop for today's podcast and all of our podcasts for the rest of the season. And stay tuned for the next NWO Sports Podcast in the near future. Thanks for watching.